I have 6 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If everyone could please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Slow down. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Christy, could you take roll call, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
Critelli,
Present.
Martin, Fontana,
Here.
Pappenfort,
Here.
Stevens,
Here.
Nacarado,
Here.
Mayor Shore.
Here,
A quorum is present.
right. And Councilmember Martin said she is on her way, so she'll be here in just a moment. She just called. Okay, very good. That will bring us to the consent agenda. Any questions or comments on that this evening?
Mr. Mayor, could we pull item number 4 off of the consent agenda onto the regular agenda?
Okay, item 4, absolutely. We'll do that as item 10 now.
And number 5, please.
And number 5, so those will be items 10 and 11 later in the session. Anything else on the consent agenda this evening? If there's nothing else, I would take a motion to combine and approve.
I move to approve the consent agenda without 4 and 5.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Critelli. The motion is to combine and approve the consent agenda and removing items 4 and 5, which we will revisit later in the meeting. Further discussion?
Fontana,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Martin. What are we voting on? Consent
4 and 5
agenda.
are pulled off.
4 and 5 are
Set aside.
pulled.
Okay, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Motion passed.
Okay, great. And that'll bring us to citizen comment. And before we begin, I want to make sure everyone knows that there isn't a public hearing tonight on the land use code. That will be in 2 weeks, so if anyone wants to speak on that tonight, they'll do it under general citizen. What's that? Okay. They'll do that under general citizen comment tonight. There will be a public hearing on this in 2 weeks, and there'll be time dedicated to that. So with citizen comment, this is an opportunity for the council to hear from our community. Public will be limited to 3 minutes each during citizen comments, and I am going to hold everyone to that 3 minutes to be fair to everyone here tonight. The council may not respond to your comments this evening. Rather, they may take your comments and suggestions under advisement, and your questions will be directed to the appropriate department for follow-up. If necessary, the city administrator will correct the public record. And with citizen comment, first up, and he is online, but it'll be Trevor Bones Davis.
Good evening, Mayor, city councilors, and city staff. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Roger that. I'm here on behalf of the local nonprofit Salida's Next Last Waltz to respectfully request that the council extend the same rental rate for the Steam Plant Event Center this year that has been afforded to this production for the last several years. We have already sold tickets to this event at last year's prices, and the proposed doubling of our venue fees will create significant difficulties meeting our costs for this year's shows. We understand that the council will be voting on the implementation of a new fee structure soon, and we will, of course, take that into account for future productions. Since 2017, Salida's Next Last Waltz has brought this community a locally produced live interpretation of Martin Scorsese and the band's iconic 1978 film. Each year, we bring together up to 30 cast members and 10 crew to create what has become a cherished Salida tradition. Every show has sold out, generating not only ticket sales to pay artists and cover costs, but also revenue for local restaurants, shops, lodging, and the steam plant itself through 100% of the bar sales for our cast and audience members, as well as the venue fees. We try to keep our ticket prices affordable while investing heavily in the production, providing our own sound system, our own engineers, stage management, security, sets, costumes, and publicity, so that the steam plant and city receive the benefits without bearing the costs of these productions. For these reasons, we respectfully ask council to extend the same rental rate for this year's production as last. This will allow us to keep the event sustainable and affordable while ensuring this beloved community tradition continues to enrich Salida's cultural and economic life. Thank you for your time and for your support of local artists and live performing arts in Salida.
Thank you, Bones. And next up, I have Ross, and I'm sorry, I can't read the last name, but right. And would you mind just getting up and just sharing your last name, just so I can have it right? Thanks.
You got it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Ross Elgin. I own 3 properties on G Street between 3rd and 4th. It's 339, 347, and 341. They are adjacent properties. And this zone change, besides the loss of square foot, if I ever get my head on right one of these days and build on those properties, I feel like it would be an extra burden for me. So I'm here to say I'd rather just have it stay as it is, or I don't know if letters were put out on this zoning, but I never received one. I received other mail from the city about the concrete work on F Street, but I never heard about zoning until it percolated through the neighborhood. And so keep it the same. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks. And just so you know, there will be that public hearing in 2 weeks on this subject, so if you want to come back. Next up, we have Ramona Kimmett.
Hi. My father has owned the property at 207 North D Street that's right here next to Riverside Park for the last 36 years, and it's been zoned commercial for that whole time. And he has lived in a fishbowl for 36 years, with the park being right there, the scout hut being right there, the tuber building being right here. It used to be the hospital. And right now it's slated to get zoned mixed use neighborhood. And we would like it to remain fully commercial, because like the gentleman that just spoke, we do have plans at some point in the near future to do something there. And I think it's in the city's best interest to keep it commercial, so that you guys get a little bit of return on your investment with that surf wave. I think the city should be thinking a little bit ahead on how the sales tax could come out of that building and getting remunerated on the onlookers that are constantly there. There's 30 to 40 people there every day looking at that surf wave. And we would like to build something there that those people can be serviced with, not just the boathouse on the other side of the park. That surf wave is within direct eyesight of our yard. And we constantly have people walking through the backyard. And we have a historical reliance with the city from a trade we did a long time ago with you guys we owned the property that was down by the Riverwalk. And we traded with you guys for more square footage up top. And no one trades waterfront for a bigger yard. Our historical reliance was that eventually we would be building something commercial there, and that we wanted the additional square footage. And we continue to work with the city on events like FIBARC and all of the other bands that come to the Riverside Park and the Scout Hut and things like that, they park right there in front of our yard or in our yard. And we've allowed you guys to continue to do that. And he has not lived in a residential state for 36 years. And now that my sister and I are getting ready to do something potentially with that property, it is going to get changed drastically. And the 40-foot setback, you guys already did a riparian setback when you did the Riverwalk. You protected the edge of the river right there. Now you guys are gonna do a second one. We're not sure how this has been done, but we also were not notified in writing by anyone that this was happening. It was only through our neighbors that we discovered that this was going to happen, and through deep research on your website.
Thank you, thank you. Next up, we have Michael Kimmett.
Hi, I'd like to take that up right where she finished with no one from this city ever notifying us, anyone down there. I mean, what's going on? How come you don't send out notifications as to what and you're gonna do next? You know, now that the wave went in, that's all, you can see what that's done. It's made that whole area commercial, and it actually looks stupid, the way you've got your map as this is gonna be mixed neighborhood on East Sackett Street. On the first, well, it would be the second and third blocks. Why? That should all be as the same status as downtown as you guys develop that area yourselves. So I can already tell you right now, go ahead, leave it as it is, just because he likes the colors of it, I guess. But everybody there is gonna have to apply for a variance. And all of the homes in that area, if you look at them and go down there and take a second look, they're all out of compliance anyway for mixed neighborhood. The setbacks on them are all either right up on the sidewalk, and it was that way because it was a Victorian style that was put in there. And I'm reiterating from when I was here last time for my 3 minutes on that. That is a Victorian style of setback for the early city. And that was part of the city's, that was Front Street there. Actually, Front Street. Now it's turning into a mixed neighborhood area. That doesn't make sense to me. I believe that and it would be the second or first block of D Street and Second Street. I'm on our Second and D, should all be set and zoned with the rest of the city as full commercial there, as it develops anyway, from between the city hall here and downtown Salida. I don't understand what the difference there would be. And if you really look at the map, it just makes sense to do so.
Thank you. Next up, Doug Peltier. Peltier, P-E-L-T-E-R.
First of all, thank you for letting us speak tonight instead of waiting 2 weeks.
And you can speak in 2 weeks as well.
I have attended the 4 other public meetings with the Planning Commission, and I was disappointed in the last one. After I gave them my handouts, they didn't even look at it. They said, "We're done. You got to take it up with the city council." There was $50 in the copying of that, but But anyway, I have these prepared for you. I'd like to give it to him after the meeting.
Yeah.
But just to speak tonight, I'd say that this river setback affects over half of my property. I bought my house in Riverside Addition on West Sackett 38 years ago, and it extremely upsets me. And I've spent hundreds of hours working on this, and I've just basically on this land use code, I worked on the part that affects me, but there's so many other things that I saw in it that just, you just couldn't stomach it. Number one is they declare whatever they put in there, they doom it to be legal, and it's up to somebody else to prove them wrong at their expense. And that's the number one thing, red flag. So thank you I'll see you in 2 weeks.
If you want to bring them up to me, I'll get them passed out. Those, yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah, just bring them here.
all right, real good.
Yeah, you can do it right now if you
Thanks
like.
again.
Okay.
Doug,
You can bring them right up to me right now. And I'll make sure everybody gets them.
he'll pass them out.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. Okay, excellent. And then next up, Mitchell Thomas.
Yes, I'm Mitchell Thomas. I live at 331 G Street, and I'm just here to try to get a variance on this, what they're pushing through the planning and zoning. And I too was not notified. I had to learn it from my neighbors, and then I had to let some of my other neighbors know what they're trying to do with us, and that we're gonna have to come down here and grovel to the city council over this change that nobody wanted this, nobody knew about it. And I've been in my house since '97. I bought it as a C2 zoning, and I bought it because of that. Now, all of a sudden, all these years later, they want to change it on me. And I just think it's kind of underhanded, and I hope that city council can help us with this matter, and I'll be back in 2 weeks as well.
Great, thanks for coming. Catherine Nelson.
I'm Catherine Nelson. I'm 320 G Street, and I'm just here as a supporting neighbor of the community of that change. Also, I agree with no notification of changing where you live away from the person. It's not right. I think that everybody should be notified correctly. So yeah, I'm not prepared on this, but I do support all of my neighbors.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And Bill Smith.
Hi, Bill Smith, Salida. I've been following the budget discussion. I had a question, an answer, and a comment. My question is, it was reported over the summer that there was like I don't know, the $10 million backlog of deferred maintenance. And as we're going through the budget, I didn't see any discussion of how that was being addressed, whether it was being addressed, how much of it's being addressed in this current year, or maybe none of it. I don't know, but I'd like to see that talked about in the future. That's my question. What are we doing about the $10 million backlog of maintenance, particularly in the current budget? The second, I wanted to answer your question. You wanted to know why the street trees weren't in the road ordinance, and you thought that that might be short-sighted or an oversight. So I can tell you why. I have the answer. The answer is that the current ordinance was written by the citizens about exactly what they wanted the road fund to fund. And the reason the citizens wrote it is because previously the city wrote it, and they wrote it to give themselves enough leeway that they could spend it on other infrastructure. After that bill was passed, the city, instead of spending the money on roads, bought the Tauber building. Nothing happened for a few years. Then citizens wrote their own ordinance and passed it. And that's why it's very specific. It's to prevent, it was not short-sighted. It saw the long-term vision that future councils would come after this money for something other than roads. They tried to do it back then. And we stopped them. And that's why you can't use it for anything other than roads. So my third was, there was a comment last night from Chief Jonke that people in Salida don't pay property tax for fire insurance, for fire protection, and that's incorrect. There are 444 properties in Salida that pay property tax for fire protection. They pay it to the South Arc, even though they're protected by the city fire department. 40% of the South Arc's budget comes from citizens of Salida, that South Arc has no obligation to serve. That includes largely everything that you've annexed in the last 20 years, including all the affordable housing. I have a list of all the properties and owners. So that was my comment. When you're dealing with the fire departments and what you're gonna charge people and whether or not you're gonna have a taxing district, keep in mind that there are a number of people already in Salida who pay property taxes for fire protection. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone online?
May I signed up.
Oh, I was trying to get your attention. You must have signed, come on up. What's
She
the-
signed up
That's
after
the
you
other
had
one,
the
for,
page.
that's for the ordinance.
Okay,
So I assume.
that's okay. I'll just put your name down here, Denise. I got it. You're good. I got you.
Okay, so this is about 5H. You want me to speak after?
No, that one isn't 5H.
So, yeah, just why
There's
don't you?
not a public hearing
yeah.
on 5H.
Yeah, just come on
I
up.
can do it during public comment.
Yeah, just do public comment.
Okay, and I have, here's what I'm gonna say.
And if you can just introduce with your name and everything.
So my name is Denise Wentz, and I'm speaking tonight as one of the leaders of the citizens petition for a referendum to repeal the R3 zoning of the 5H LLC property. I am here because our community spoke loudly and clearly. Under Colorado law, we needed 259 signatures from Salida registered voters to force this issue to a public vote. But we didn't just meet that threshold, we exceeded it. In less than 2 weeks, we collected and submitted over 500 signatures. Over 500 voices from everyday Salidans, workers, retirees, business owners who care deeply about Salida. This is not a fringe group, this is a groundswell. We are motivated to protect what makes Salida special. Our small town character, our quiet streets, our quality of life that drew us here in the first place. And yet, here we are watching our city government fail to prioritize those things. Instead of listening to residents who have called this valley home for decades, we've seen a rush to approve high-density zoning that's not consistent nor compatible with our neighborhoods. Heavy traffic funneling through well-established neighborhoods, buildings soaring high, shadowing our backyards, a park that's more promise than reality. These are not abstract concerns. They affect our daily lives. Let's be honest and blunt what is happening here. A developer, Walt Harder, has been allowed to threaten us. Do as I say, he says, or I'll force even higher density over 100 units. He dangles a generous 72 units like a carrot, but it's coercion wrapped up in concession, trying to force us not to follow through with our constitutional right for a referendum. I ask you, Mayor Shore and council members, simply, can't you see how completely morally bankrupt this is? Can't you see that there should be no room in a civil society for a developer who bullies Salida residents? And even worse, you side with him. This isn't leadership, this is capitulation. Our referendum is not about stopping growth. It's about growth in our own terms, with our voices. We've earned our day in court, and the people deserve to vote. Honor that process. Let democracy decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, all right, let's see. All right, that is going to take us to ordinance 2025-16, an ordinance of the city of Salida, Colorado, acting by and through its water activity enterprise, authoring the issuance of water and sewer enterprise revenue bonds, providing for the use of net bond proceeds to construct and fund a replacement sewer interceptor, providing for the payment of the bonds from the net revenue derived from the operation of the water and sewer system, and making certain covenants in connection therewith, providing for the form, payment, and other details in connection with the bonds, authorizing the execution of agreements and documents in connection with the bonds, and declaring an emergency. This is a second reading and a public hearing. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing and turn it over to city staff for their report. Thank you.
You know that attorneys are heavily involved when the title is that long, right? Bond counsel and our financial advisors are working with us closely on this, but this is one of the first steps involved in issuing the debt that is related, or in the form of bonds, that is related to completing the US 50 sewer replacement project, upon which you included, approved construction contract agreements for earlier. And who is online?
Courtney, Bruce.
Okay. If one of you will just give a brief introduction to this. I think most of the council members have been through this before, but just kind of an introduction.
Amy, did you want to have us give an introduction to the ordinance and the legal undertakings, or more the bond issue itself?
Probably the purpose of this ordinance.
Okay.
So the
Tim, I'll
parameters.
turn it over to you and your team.
Sure, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Hi, I'm Kim Crawford. I'm with Butler Snow in Denver, and we have been working with the city as bond counsel on this transaction. So this ordinance is long, but again, it is something that I think you've seen before, or at least in a similar format before. So this ordinance is called a parameters ordinance, which means that it actually sets forth certain parameters relating to the sale of the bonds that cannot be exceeded. So the parameters are in section, let me find it. I'll go through all of the defined terms, which you probably don't care about right now. Mostly what the defined terms talk about is it gives an idea of what's been going on and what bonds you have outstanding, and what bonds are parity bonds, which means they're payable on with the same source of revenue as these new bonds would be. It talks about the different funds and accounts that are going to be established to pay these bonds. And then the parameters part of this is in section 213. These are bonds that are just specifically payable from your water and sewer revenue. So it is not a general fund revenue bond. It's just payable from your specific enterprise sources. The interest rate on these bonds cannot exceed 5.5%, and these are high limits, so they can't be exceeded without us coming back to you to get further authorization. The redemption provisions, which means when the bonds can be kind of refinanced, like you would refinance a house, you can refinance them in about 10 years, but at a price not to exceed 100% of the par amount. So there's not going to be any penalty for redeeming these bonds if you would choose to do so. The purchase price is not less than 99%. And again, the purchase price is what you're going to pay the underwriter to buy the bonds. Principal amount can't exceed 16.6 million. The maturity schedule, the principal amount payable in any year cannot exceed 1.25 million. And the total repayment cost, which is principal and interest, cannot exceed 26.5 million. And the bonds have to mature no later than 2045. And then again, the rest of the ordinance is just a lot of provisions which talk about, what you're pledging, which is just these revenues. It creates a coverage test, which is 120%. So if you, you can't, issue bonds unless you have a certain coverage, a coverage ratio, and your auditor right now is working on those coverage calculations because your old bond documents have those same types of coverage, coverage requirements. This ordinance approves forms of an official statement, which is on file with the city. It's a long offering document, which is gonna be used to sell your bonds to underwriters. It tells those investors what they need to know about the city and their financial situation. It approves the paying agent agreement, which is your contract with your paying agent. You make payments to them, they pay your bondholders. And it also approves forms of a continuing disclosure certificate, which is something that you need to file annually with the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board, which is a division of the SEC. So you have to provide information annually about your continued operations as a city and your financial information. And that's a lot and kind of high level, but do you have any questions or would you like more detail about the bond ordinance?
Anyone have questions so far?
I'm going with no.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I think we're good for now. Yeah. thanks.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Okay, do you have, okay.
So, you know, basically upon approval of the ordinance, and staff could sell the bond, you know, working with Eilers and team. And we are scheduled, hoping to be able to do that October 1st. Thursday of this week, we're meeting with Standard & Poor's in order to get a rating. And so, you know, there's a whole series of steps, but this is giving staff the authorization to proceed within these parameters without you.
And I know we've been working for a very long time with both Ehlers and with Butler Snow. Yep, yep, okay. So where the staff and applicant are the same, so there's nothing there. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
Surprisingly, no.
Surprisingly.
That was-
I think
know.
people are so happy that we're finally came to resolution with Poncha and are moving forward. So, yeah, at least I'll operate under that assumption. So no need for rebuttal. I'll go ahead and close public hearing, and that'll take us to preliminary council discussion. Who'd like to begin?
I can make a motion.
Does anyone,
I'm good with that.
everyone, anyone have a question or okay, we've been through this for a very, very long time, so I'm good with the motion if everyone's good with that.
And Dominique's online, right?
Yeah, she is.
Does
Yeah.
she have a question?
Yeah. Councilmember Nacarado, not to put you on the spot, you're good? Okay.
She's muted, so I'm
Okay.
assuming.
I would like
she's
to
good.
make a motion. Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2025-16, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, authorizing the issuance of water and sewer enterprise revenue bonds.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Fontana, seconded by Councilmember Pappenfort. The motion is to approve ordinance 2025-16, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, authorizing the issuance of water and sewer enterprise revenue bonds. Further discussion?
Nacarado,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Fontana.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Appreciate all the hard work. That takes us to new business, and item 8 is Soggy Surfer Amplified Sound Permit. My understanding is this is not a public hearing, given the recent court ruling.
Correct.
So I'm just going to turn it over to staff for hopefully a lot of enlightenment.
So much enlightenment is coming your way. Yes, we wanted to keep it on the agenda because we felt it was important to have some information and a bit of conversation in public about the recent Supreme Court case. So just a brief history for those of you who may not have been on council. Mr. Hobbs complained about noise that was coming from the high side during live music shows. He filed a complaint with the city, and at that time, which was, I think, early 2022, the council engaged with the community and heard from a number of business owners, small business owners, who really felt that having live music was a cornerstone to their economic vitality. So based on those conversations and the feedback council received, the council at that time chose to support and expand the number of permits that could be issued to private venues, and that number was 60 for each year. Mr. Hobbs sued the city as well as Highside and stated that pursuant to a statutory clause, the city did not have authority to issue these permits to private venues. City and Highside countered and said, yes, we do, based on another section of the statute. Court of Appeals agreed with the city, or the district court. Yes, the district court and the Court of Appeals agreed with the city. However, the case made it to the Colorado Supreme Court, and the Colorado Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, found against the city in the Court of Appeals. So the main issue came down to statutory interpretation. As I mentioned, our argument was that the statute was plain on its face. The court disagreed and found that because of the multiple uses of the word "or," there was enough room for ambiguity. And I went to the oral arguments in Colorado Springs, and it was a deep dive into sentence diagrams. Like, it was really, really interesting. I mean, interesting in a bad way for us because we didn't win it, but it was really interesting to hear the arguments. So the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that the city of Salida's authority is limited with regards to issuing amplified sound permits for for-profit businesses. They stated that only primary entities, which are identified as the state of Colorado, political subdivisions of the state, and nonprofits, can host cultural, entertainment, athletic, or patriotic events, including but not limited to concerts, music festivals, firework displays for citizens, without a specific permit to exceed the noise limits. So we don't have to issue one for ourselves, basically, is what that means. These events can be held on public property or on private property, such as a bar or restaurant, which is really important for us to keep in mind. So, effective immediately, amplified sound exceeding the noise levels stated within the Salida Municipal Code, it's Table 10A, if you are interested in looking it up, is now in violation of Colorado law. So in the short term, letters have been sent to all venues who received amplified sound permits through September. I emailed to the Highside, Trace Litros, and there was an event that was going to take place on F Street, letting them know that they needed to conform with Table 10A and make sure that their decibels were in line with that table. I worked through that with them, where they need to be measuring from, and time of day, and the zones. So everyone seems to be in the same understanding. I'd also like to get communication out to all venues so that they are fully aware. They should have received an amplified sound permit from us, but in case there are any concerns or confusion, I just want to make sure that they're all aware. And I've sent this memo to our police officers, who are going to end up being the first to respond to these complaints. So I believe that the best approach is first to educate the private venues as well as our community. There may be times when a nonprofit organization is utilizing a private space and they exceed the noise limits. The city has limited control and authority over this activity. It'll take more research, though, to determine if the user is a primary entity by any city staff that is responding to a complaint. So just because it's in a bar or a restaurant or a private venue does not mean that it's violating Colorado law. And that's really important as we kind of move through this. In the midterm, the Colorado Municipal League has begun drafting legislation that will clarify the statute. Depending on the final language, And if it's successful, passing through the House, Senate, and being signed into law by the governor, the legislation will have a certain effective date. It's rare for legislation to become effective immediately. It usually has an effective date of either July 1st or January 1st. So in this case, July 1st, 2026 or January 1st, 2027 is more kind of generally seen. So, next summer could be quiet in the city.
I just wanted to add that everything that Christy said applies to all municipalities within the state.
Yes, yes,
So
thank
this
you.
impacts the entire state. Most or all municipalities were operating how Salida was operating and granting these sound permits until this court case. And now all municipalities will need to be giving this update to their local governments.
Now, what about a home rule versus statute?
That's still outstanding in the courts, whether it's the home rule municipalities have the authority to deviate from this. However, the decision said it was a matter of statewide concern, which tends to lean towards that they're going to decide even on home rule municipalities. But we'll keep you posted on that because that might
So
be
that's
relevant for us to know.
pending, huh? Yeah, okay, thanks.
I'm curious if, so you said this isn't in effect immediately, so will this have an impact on the music festival coming this weekend?
No.
But it could
And
be a
that's because
quiet
it's through the Chafee, the Community Foundation, correct? Is that?
And we have a relationship agreement with Bonfire, so we're sponsoring it. The state statute says, uses the word produced, hosted, and something by the local government. So it's the something that's really important.
Yada, yada,
Yeah.
yada.
And yes, the Community Foundation was
Yep.
there as well.
And so if we have a nonprofit that wants to host an event at, like, a bar, so that is allowed?
It is
Or-
allowed, and we won't have to do anything. We don't need to issue a permit. They don't need to fill out an application for for us. Yeah.
Because the statute exempts local governments, the state of Colorado, and nonprofits.
So even if it's held at,
Correct.
like a for-profit business?
Correct.
Okay.
So on that note, let's say police get a complaint, they show up at that business as long as the proprietor, manager, et cetera, just showed that documentation, we'd be all good to go, maybe?
Yeah,
I don't want to answer, we'll have to look at it and make sure it's, a nonprofit, run by a nonprofit event.
Yeah.
Organization.
Also, because like how I'm receiving this information is we just small town for a cause, any event. It's produced by the city if you want it, right? Like it seems very loophole.
Not answering that question.
I mean, I don't want to give up the loophole.
Well,
They're not watching.
but that's what we were doing with the 60 that Highside requested, which was 6 times what we researched the whole state was doing. So, but we get you guys decide for a local business and local artists to give that amount. But so that continuing to do that would not be allowed because that's exactly what we did and were squashed at the Supreme Court. But it would be if the sponsor was a nonprofit or the sponsor was a city. So, that's the distinction between just giving the permit to the restaurant, which we were doing.
Yeah.
I would say. But, like CML, the day it came out, the general counsel spoke to me and he has even given me the draft. He wrote like that day, the changes that they're gonna offer to the state legislature. So we'll keep in touch with you all because if you have, especially since it's an art community with musicians, to reach out to those organizations that, go to the Capitol to lobby, to make sure that passes so that the state legislation goes back to what we were understanding it to be. So that's the hope. But, CML, like I said, the general counsel wrote the proposed amendments and sent them to Jeff and I the day of the decision, so.
I'm curious just from, just like at the state's revenue, like the state of Colorado, or maybe it just goes to Morrison, but does this impact like Red Rocks Amphitheater?
Yeah.
Is that owned? I think.
Is that owned?
It's owned by the city of Denver.
Okay.
The case it's in
So
is
they've
the
also
Colorado
been
Spring Court
regulated.
case.
Amperage.
Colorado Springs. There's a large amphitheater that's privately owned in Colorado Springs, and I think that was.
And that's where they're arguing home rule, and that's TBD, to be determined.
What was the part again? There was a list of, one of them was an athletic event. What was that? And
That was it, athletic.
if you have
Patriotic.
if you have a race,
But it has to be a government or a nonprofit hosting an event for athletic, cultural,
Entertainment.
and whatever. So that's just the kind of event, but it needs to be run, well, according to the Supreme Court in the Hobbs decision as of last week, or this week, it needs to be run by a nonprofit or a local government.
okay.
I foresee a lot of nonprofits being formed.
Any other questions?
I do just want to clarify one thing for the public. When we measure the sound, it's from the property of the complainant. It's not from like the doors of the business. It's from the actual property line of the complainant.
And it's also based on the
Thank you.
zone, not the use. So if there are residential units in a commercial zone, we use the commercial zone decibel level, not the residential, which is different.
So as an example, the complainant lives, as I understand it, in an industrial zone. So it would be based on the decibels for the industrial zone from his property.
Correct.
Okay,
And there's a table in, chapter 10 of the code.
okay.
And the police measure that?
They do.
They, okay.
Like, is it an app on your phone, or do you have a, Chief Johnson?
You had to wait till he sat
I
back
did.
down.
Sorry.
I'm gonna let him sit down again and then think of something else to ask.
He has a natural ear for it.
So in the past years, we've actually had relatively expensive sound measuring devices, and you have to keep sending those in and getting them checked for accuracy and calibrated time and time again. We switched in 2023 to utilizing an app on a phone, and that's been held up in courts and acceptable. And we don't have to keep paying to get the app, so.
So then, Chief, then if it's too loud, you go to the spot, tell them to lower it, then go back to and then measure it again, and then, be
Yeah,
like, no, you
so-
still don't got it.
Yeah, just how it works, if we do get a complaint, we will talk to the complainant, we will go over to the establishment, tell them, hey, they need to turn it down, we've had a complaint. If we come back again because the complaint's still there, at that point, we'll take enforcement, but we will give everybody the opportunity to self-correct the first time.
Okay.
And that's how you operate for any code complaints, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Christy, can you bring up the, is there, here we go.
You don't need to do anything, there's.
We don't, okay.
No,
Okay.
we just wanted to take the opportunity to have
Okay.
a conversation.
Okay.
No, we
So
can't.
nothing to vote on, we can move right on.
No, I will keep you informed. I believe I mentioned either in an update to you all or at one of the last meetings, I'm sitting on the CML Policy Committee again, so I will ensure that this and other policy discussions come back to
Okay,
you.
thank you. Appreciate you serving on that. Okay, next up is Resolution 2025-41, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, approving an annexation agreement with 5H LLC for the annexation of certain real property into the city.
I'm so sorry, Carolyn, before you start, we wanted to give the council an update on a couple things pertaining to this.
Yes.
Exciting week in Salida.
It has been super, and it's only Tuesday.
So as you all heard earlier, Christy and I met with Ms. Wentz earlier today. She did submit the referendum petitions. There were quite a few, so now I have, that pauses ordinance 2025-15. So that's on pause, it will not take effect. I have 30 days to verify all signers of the petitions, make sure it's sufficient. Then she needs 259 signatures, and like she said earlier, they got over 500 signatures. So once I go through that, deem it sufficient, the ordinance will go back to City Council, and you can either affirm your decision on ordinance 2025-15, or you can repeal your decision. If you affirm your decision, then we will go to a special vote. If you repeal your decision, then there's no special vote. It does not go to the vote of the people. we will bring another ordinance to you with a different zoning for your consideration.
Okay. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, very helpful.
Yeah, not a decision we need to make tonight, obviously,
No,
but something just to file away.
Yep. Just wanted to let you all know.
Yes, that last part. So can you say that last part one more time?
So if you affirm your original decision, then it goes to a special vote or special election for the vote of the people. If you repeal your decision, then a new ordinance will come before you for a different zoning.
And then
So
what
they cannot
happens?
apply for a R3 zoning if you repeal your decision.
Okay,
They'd have to pick another zone, different zone.
okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Good evening. I am here to present the item on the annexation agreement for Resolution 2025-41. Do you want to put up the PowerPoint? So as a reminder, this is a 15.06 acre parcel known as the 5H LLC annexation. And next slide. We are at this point in the process for the annexation agreement. If everything proceeds normally, there would be a recordation of the annexation and effective dates. So right now, we're just considering the annexation agreement. Next slide. The ordinance 2025-14, which is the annexation part, was approved by council. And these conditions listed here were included in that ordinance that's also attached in your packet, that the proposed development will meet the requirements of the municipal code. The city shall serve the property with appropriate utilities. Park dedication shall be in compliance with city requirements. Street connectivity shall be provided through any proposed subdivision to accommodate appropriate emergency access. Pedestrian connectivity shall be provided to accommodate existing and potential future facilities. And the total number of primary residential dwelling units on the annexed property shall not exceed 96. That was in the original ordinance. These conditions are included in the agreement with the exception of number 6, which has now been reduced to 72 at the request of the applicant and as an attempt to further address neighboring residents' concerns with the goal of avoiding the referendum. Next slide. So here you can see the revised concept plan that has a little bit more curvature to the streets, greater buffers, a larger park, and obviously fewer units. It was brought down from 96 to 72. This is not a consideration at this time. It's only a concept we're just showing you that has been brought forward by the applicant. There would need to be a major subdivision after annexation and zoning is completed, and then additional development plans, major site plan, if it's under the new code, would then be brought forward. But this is the concept, just so you can see it. Next slide. So the additional conditions that are in this agreement, again, say that the total number of primary residential dwelling units would not exceed a total of 72. The annexer agrees to develop the property in general conformance with the concept plan that I just showed. And it includes the following elements: a mix of housing types, dispersed traffic circulation, includes the location and size of the public park, and multifamily housing located on the western portion of the site. The number of inclusionary housing units at the property shall be no less than 12, which shall include 6 units rented up to 80% AMI and 6 units rented up to 100% AMI, consistent with the requirements of the city's IH ordinance and further described, as we would have an inclusionary housing and subdivision improvement agreement once it would get to that point. And then the next slide, another condition is in addition to the above referenced 12 inclusionary housing units, 2 additional for sale units shall be permanently deed restricted on a form approved by the city attorney for full-time primary resident occupied members of the Chaffey County workforce, which shall not be limited by income or sales price. The annexer will determine which units shall be deed restricted in this sense.
Hey, Carolyn, can I ask you a quick question on that?
Mm-hmm.
Why would anybody want to buy a market rate home with a deed restriction attached when they could go and buy a market rate home without a deed restriction attached?
It has to do with qualifying them as workforce.
Oh.
So,
And resident occupied primary residence.
Yeah.
So instead of someone having a vacation home or a second home,
Right.
it has to be their primary residence.
But so their appreciation would be capped. I guess that's what I'm confused with.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't think I'd be, but anyway, okay, thanks.
it's just another way of providing more workforce
Okay.
housing. Yeah. So, just some more specifics is that the certificate of occupancy would be required prior to the 20th market rate single-family unit. So in other words, they build the rentals, and then these two would be later, kind of later in the subdivision.
I'm gonna add one more piece to that answer, and it is because if it is deed restricted for members of the workforce, you have a much smaller pool of people competing for that home. So instead of all the second homeowners that might be trying to purchase a home from out of state, you're talking about homes that are just for sale for members of the local workforce. So in all likelihood, that market maximum will be lower for these workforce housing units than it would be for the general market units. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
What happens if those don't sell?
I would certainly could put some language, into the specifics of the inclusionary housing agreement or subdivision improvement agreement around that. Currently for inclusionary housing units though, I can't remember, Nina, do you recall if there's a specific time limit on that? Generally speaking, you really just have to reduce the price as a developer until it makes it palpable or feasible for somebody to buy.
Okay. There's no time limit for,
We haven't done it to this point, doesn't mean that we couldn't, but that's generally what they've been required to do is reduce the price until somebody buys it.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Or could they open it back up to that greater population to sell it that?
Not if it's in here.
Yeah, not if it's in there.
They could also maybe work with like the Chaffey Housing Trust or Chaffey Housing Authority. We have entities in this county that could assist with that sale.
Yeah, to develop it, correct. Okay, next slide. That kind of summarizes the annexation agreement and the key conditions that have been added. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Was there anything the applicant wanted to? No, okay.
I don't think so.
I have a question. If we back off to R2 to save the city $30,000, how can we hold him to 72 units?
This agreement would go away.
This would go away?
It would be negated by
But
them.
that's with the
Then I
zoning
can get
though.
behind it.
Nina, do you want to explain?
So the way this annexation agreement is written is that the annexation becomes effective upon the effective date of the two ordinances, the 2025-14 and 2025-15. So if the ordinance that approved the R3 zoning, you go with a different ordinance, then we would renegotiate a different annexation
terms.
agreement.
Yep.
Okay,
We would renegotiate the terms.
okay, thank you.
And the 96 is still on the property though, right? From the annexation?
If
Like that wouldn't go
the condition,
away.
if, it depends on if you approve this agreement. So this agreement says that the annexation will not be effective until both ordinances. If this agreement is not approved, yes, there was an ordinance that was approved that had conditions on the property.
Yeah, the way that was written was the ordinance is approved subject to an annexation agreement being approved with these conditions. So if this is the annexation agreement, then I believe the 72 trumps the 96. Is that correct? Because that's really what the ordinance
I have to look at the
states.
conditions, if they were written that way, but, if this annexation agreement is not approved, I'll have to look at the ordinance while you keep talking. If, I don't think it was written that an agreement would do the conditions, it was just at the unit. I'll have
It
to
was
look.
written that way, yeah.
She's looking that up, yeah.
It's attached in the
Oh,
packet.
okay.
If you want.
I think the applicant does want to make a comment.
Okay.
It'd be great to hear from him.
Walt Herder, the annexation stipulates R3. So if the R3 goes away, the agreement goes away.
Is that all you want to say about the development, or?
I was trying to address your question about the limits. I mean, all that would disappear. There is no agreement after that. Then we're start fresh with the new zoning.
And let me ask a follow-up question, because it's my understanding that the 72 units was based on R3 zoning because it allowed you to reduce the setbacks to the side, allowing a bigger shared area. Am I right?
That's mostly accurate. The 72 unit was a concession to appease many of the neighbors and the city in reaching an agreement that we thought everybody could live with. Clearly not. The point's moot now. If this goes to the referendum or anything like that, then we're approving this kind of for fun. I showed up and we want to approve this because I want to hold good to my side of the agreement to do so and to limit this number. But if R3 is not the zoning, then this agreement and everything goes away. Whatever zoning it gets will be the new barrier, the new bar, and we'll pursue whatever density we think is appropriate there.
Right, thank you.
So I just want to clarify, now I could answer the question. So the ordinance approving the annexation just had conditions. I made it that it was just conditions, not anything to do with the agreement. So the ordinance says that it approves the annexation subject to the conditions. And one of those conditions, to answer Councilmember Wales' question, is that the number of primary residential units shall not exceed a total of 96. But that being said, like is being discussed with this agreement, it's further, it's a further condition that the applicant is agreeing to put onto the property if you were to approve it. And also if those other ordinances became effective, which that is to be determined.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, this seems like a good faith gesture and agreement of the 72 units compared to even the 96 that we put on there. And I know you can't, maybe you can't answer, but with the referendum, I'm not sure how those exactly work. What would that accomplish? They would try to repeal the zoning, and then the 96 would go away. They would ask from
No, the 96 doesn't go away.
It's a condition on the annexation ordinance. So there was,
Okay.
yeah, this is a good question for everyone. So there was an annexation ordinance and a zoning ordinance.
Okay.
What's been submitted, and the city clerk could correct me, but it was a referendum on the zoning, which was the R3. On the annexation ordinance, we wrote it so there's a condition on the annexation that it does not exceed 96.
Okay, and then, but they would try to change the zoning.
That's it.
And then all of it goes away.
All of what goes?
They would reapply for zoning, so say
There you
they-
go.
Okay.
We
That's
brought
what
an
I'm
ordinance
asking.
before you for an R2 zoning.
Mm-hmm.
They could do that, but they could only do 96 units according to the ordinance.
Okay, so it would, if
the
R2,
annexation.
if the referendum were to come forward, as we looking like it's going to do, it would go from R3 to R2 is what the referendum is asking.
No, the referendum is just repealing R3.
Okay,
But it
so
will be
then
in
we
front of-
would rezone.
But it'll be in front of you all to decide what you want to do in about a month.
Right.
So you will decide, do you send this to the election? Do you repeal the ordinance? Do you rezone to a different? So you'll have that decision in about a month.
But not tonight.
But not tonight.
But the referendum is just to repeal the ordinance for zoning.
So they would
Thank you
start
for that
over again.
clarity.
So we're gonna have a much more robust conversation.
Good. Okay,
But our hands are tied right now.
right now, our hands are tied because the
we're in the process
the
of verifying
referendum
signatures.
is coming.
So there's
Yeah.
nothing we can do.
Right, other than this ordinance.
The resolution's in front of you to approve an agreement. That is the 72, mostly the biggest difference, I mean, Carolyn will go into difference, but is the 72 units, a restriction of up to 72 units.
And if we approve
also
this
the-
72 units, then it's up to them to stop the referendum?
This won't have
This-
anything to do with
Not
the
us,
referendum.
no,
No,
not
I know,
this.
I know, not us, but it,
But-
it does not appear it's gonna stop anything.
It's
You
already
can't
been,
stop
It was
It's already
submitted today,
been,
but
yeah.
the city clerk has to see if it's sufficient. And then in about a month, you all will have a decision to make. Do you send it to the election, do you send it to a special election? Do you just repeal the ordinance right then and there? And/or do you, you need to have a zoning for a property, especially if it's annexed. So, and/or do you approve an ordinance for a different zoning?
Or they can stop it? No,
No.
No, so here's, I mean, I think-
once it goes, it
No, that's a
goes.
good question, because I was just talking to Jeff about that, that's a really good question. So once, if it's deemed sufficient, the person who submitted, or the people who submitted the petition, they are not the owner of that. Every single signer is, so there's no
Okay.
way for, after today, if it's deemed sufficient, that someone can say, oh, no, just kidding. It's, because and that's a good question, because we were talking about this in our law office a week or so ago, and a lot of the young associates were like, oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, it's not for that one person anymore. It's because every person who signed that, it's they own that. So it's
going forward.
the people's petition.
And I think it's
yeah.
really important to know that
Okay.
with over 500 signatures and with only having to get 259, I believe, Paul, I mean, there's an extremely high likelihood that they're gonna meet and exceed that number.
The
So I think it's just
259.
important for us all to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you.
I will. I might as well make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-41, approving the 5H LLC annexation agreement.
Second.
So I have a motion from Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Fontana. The motion is to approve Resolution 2025-41, approving the 5H LLC annexation agreement. Further discussion?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to point out too that another difference in this one is that they will have two, inclusionary housing units that are for sale. Or I guess they don't need to, well, yeah, they're deed-restricted, but we did discuss how they wanted just the for rent one. So I looked at it, and that is 1 out of 5 units, which when I asked for 1 out of 5 during our last discussion with this, it was an issue. There was no interest in doing 1 out of 5. And sounds like now that we are getting closer to this referendum becoming a reality, now we're thinking about 1 out of 5. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Anything else?
I was gonna just add that I don't see any way that I can vote no on the agreement as it stands tonight. I'm happy with, especially with items 6, 7, and 8, that were spelled out in the agreement, that the property be developed in general conformance with that concept plan that's attached on the agreement. So we do get some reassurance about the mix of housing types, the dispersed traffic circulation, the location size of the public park, multifamily housing, and then we have the 6 rental units. 12 rental units at 80% and 100% AMI, and then the 2 deed restricted for sale units. So there's nothing in the agreement itself that I can say no to tonight. If I said no, it would simply be bending to the referendum, and that doesn't feel right to me. So I just wanted to call that out. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, at least sorry, I mean, yeah, at least this holds something in writing for that 72 unit. At least it's like, not, it's written down and not out there in the ether, so at least there's that.
All right, yes, I think we're ready.
Critelli,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
Martin.
No.
Motion passed.
Okay. And that will bring us to item 10, which is actually item 4 on the consent agenda, which is ordinance 2025-17, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, repealing and replacing in its entirety Chapter 16 of the Salida Municipal Code, entitled Land Use and Development Code, and adopting a restated Chapter 16. And it's to approve on first reading and set a second reading and public hearing for October 7th, 2025. And I just want to clarify again on these that there won't be a public hearing on this for 2 weeks.
Okay. Something told me that you were gonna pull this from the consent agenda, so we put together a presentation for y'all. I've got Matt Goebel, who is on the line, and will be jumping in here periodically as well. So evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present a bunch of information about a process that's been going on for quite some time now. And we're pretty excited to be at this stage finally. So in front of you is the first reading and setting of the public hearing for the city's land use code. At long last, you know, a land use code rewrite is one of the biggest, if not most painstaking, detailed, time-consuming projects that a city can undertake, any city. This one happens to be close to 250 pages. There's a ton of detail work that goes into it, and no land use code is the same. Each and every one is tailored specifically for the priorities and goals of the community, and so I wanted to start off with that. Let's jump to the next slide, please. I'm going to provide a bit of an overview on the project scope and timeline. Right on, thank you. So City Council directed staff to get this process started way back in 2019 PC, pre-COVID. That's when we brought Clarion on board, got some momentum going in that first 6 months or so, and then wham, COVID hits, bunch of staffing changes, more development applications coming in the door than we had ever seen by far in the city. And things really started to stumble. And we pushed a big pause button for quite some time on this particular project. But this is the timeline that kind of shows where we started and where we are today, and I'm very happy to be where that yellow arrow is now. You know, going through the project orientation and assessment phase, through what we call various installments, various pieces of the land use code that were looked at individually by a bunch of bodies, including the Land Use Advisory Committee that was put together, and then eventually putting all those pieces together into what's called a consolidated land use code draft, which of course has gone in front of the public multiple times at various meetings, been online on our website. We've had surveys out there, lots of information and advertising about both this land use code process and the zoning map as well. So here we are today, looking at the final draft land use and setting this public hearing. Next slide, please. I want to quickly acknowledge all the staff that have contributed to this project, both current and past, as well as the folks at Clarion, everybody that is on that list, and many more who have contributed to this project. Again, not least the Land Use Advisory Committee that we have put together. Next slide. So why are we here looking at this land use code? Well, first and foremost, our current land use code is outdated. It's almost 15 years old. And so there's a big opportunity to modernize and make it much more relevant for today's uses and the goals and priorities of this community today. The current code is pretty difficult to navigate. It's been put together in piecemeal fashion. There's been a variety of text amendments placed in various parts of the code, and there's a lot of inconsistencies to it. So if you're coming from the outside and trying to read this, it's pretty difficult, dense to get through and to understand. And that's going to be the case with any land use code, but our current code leaves a lot of room for improvement. Furthermore, trying to meet the goals of the comprehensive plan, as well as other recent goals and input from both this body and planning commissioners, especially around the topics of affordability, housing opportunities and diversity, efficient use of land and resources and our city services. Greater predictability, that's something that developers and landowners and homeowners alike have all asked for. They want to make sure that they have a better sense of whether or not they're going to be able to do something a little sooner than, 6 months or a year down the line, and streamlining that process and reducing the inefficiencies, and at the same time, enhancing the flexibility that the code can allow to a certain extent. Next slide. So back at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, Clarion did an assessment. It was that document that's shown on the right. Their primary recommendations are all listed there. Make the code more user-friendly, update the review procedures and make them more transparent and predictable, update the zoning districts, which we'll talk more about here in a little bit, revise the use regulations to be more up-to-date, keep addressing affordable housing, and improve the development standards, make them a lot more clear and consistent for those, the layperson reading the land use code for the first time. Next slide. So a little bit of an overview of the public engagement that has happened over the last 5+ years. So in the first year or so, we did that assessment. We got that land use advisory committee created, which is comprised of members all over the community. You've got developers, you've got the environmental folks, you've got landscape architects, you've got folks interested in parks and trail, you have people engineers, great variety of people who have contributed to this, and also members of Planning Commission and Council. So there's two of you here, Councilmember Martin and Councilmember Critelli that served most recently. Mayor Shore, you were also on the committee for a while as well. So I really appreciate the work that you all have put into it as well. So that first year was really just kind of setting the stage. We got a web page created to help disseminate the information. Things slowed down, obviously, with COVID and whatnot, but we still kept chipping away for the next few years. Along the way, we did determine that one thing we needed to do was update the future land use map. The land use map that was in the comprehensive plan was really just a snapshot in time in 2013 when the comp plan was put together. So it didn't really discuss the future desires for land uses throughout the city. So we initiated that process, and it took almost about a year to do the future land use map and get that adopted finally through City Council. And we'll go over that a little bit more later on. So that was a really big project. Next slide. We got great turnout for the meetings that we did on the future land use map. We got a lot of surveys back, a lot of information that was there in the newspaper to come up with that map that's on the left-hand side. That is the adopted future land use map, which is an appendix to the comprehensive plan. Next slide. So we continue working through the various installments after that point, and eventually put together the first consolidated draft that I was talking about, and that was unveiled to the community earlier this year, this spring. We unveiled that at a public meeting at the steam plant, and sent out subsequent surveys, as well as a zoning map survey tool that called Conveo that we use on the website. All of this was advertised broadly on the city website. We bought ads in the paper. We posted flyers all around town. We posted it on cities' social media sites. There was noticing, formal noticing in the paper for various hearings and meetings. We had it on some radio spots. I mean, it was in a lot of places. So anybody who says otherwise, I would challenge.
Would that include some of the people, we heard a lot of those comments.
Well,
today.
there's been a lot of information out there.
And they left.
Yeah, and they don't get to hear that, unfortunately. But anyways, we got a lot of feedback from it and from that first draft, and we've taken that into account. Of course, it takes weeks, if not months, to turn that around into another draft, and we did that earlier this summer. We created a second draft, had a second public meeting that some of you were at, did a second round of surveys, a second round of advertisements in all those places, and then we had a final draft that was released in earlier in August of this year, just prior to the Planning Commission public hearings. And that ended up in a unanimous recommendation that will be here in front of you soon. Next slide. This is just a slide just showing the website, the web page that we have dedicated to the land use code rewrite and the zoning map comprehensive rezone. We will continue to use this particular web page until this process is finished, and probably even a little bit beyond that, until this land use code and zoning map can really stand up on its own and walk away. Let's see, at that, I'm gonna pass things over to Matt, who's gonna jump into a bit of a big picture overview of some of the changes, and then some of the more substantial updates to development standards, dimensional standards for development. Go ahead, Matt.
Sounds good. Thanks, Bill. Can you hear me and see me all right?
Yes, we can.
Great. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to present again. We're excited to be at this stage of the process, like Bill said. I'll look forward to being there in person with you in a couple of weeks. For now, in this presentation, what we wanted to do is jump in and move beyond the project itself and talk about the document and talk about how it's put together and just give everyone a refresher about what we've tried to accomplish here. First of all, just the document itself, how it's put together, the organization, the user friendliness, the formatting. Those are not small things. The formatting of the document is a key thing that we heard about as an obstacle to understanding zoning rules in Salida. And so we really tried to focus on a better organization, a better format. You know, you can see an example page there with cleaner headings that show the, I'm not sure you can see the page, can you? Bill?
What's that? Say that again?
Is that page still up there? I can't see.
It is, yeah, we can go to the next one.
Okay, yeah, lots of improved organization, better formatting, consolidation of similar topics, etc. Let's go to the next slide. I can't see the slides that are up.
Oh, yeah, so, okay, go back one, please. So we're on, I'll let you know which one we're on, organization of articles.
There we go, thanks a lot. Yeah, so, you know, one part of this was just organizing the code in a more streamlined way. That involved a fewer number of chapters, a fewer number of articles that consolidated similar information rather than scattering them around a lot of different articles like you have now. So, for example, all the procedures are put together, all the definitions are put together, et cetera. Next slide.
Go ahead.
There have been some important tweaks since the Planning Commission meetings, and Bill and I put these right up front just so you would see some of the differences before we get into the background nuts and bolts. We've continued to do just various Scrivener error cleanups, you know, formatting, cross-references, things like that. In addition, substantively, there have been a few minor things. We have updated the fast track language to ensure that we're meeting the DOLA requirements that Bill talked about to ensure the qualification for that grant funding. There has been a complete revision and replacement of telecommunications sections that were implemented to address new technology and new statutory requirements. That was put together by Nina and her firm. We had earlier talked about a divided plan development process that had a preliminary step and then a final step. And upon further reflection, that's really a rezoning in this code. And so there's no preliminary rezoning that we've established. And so we eliminated that preliminary idea of a PD just because there's no partial rights that you can get. it's the full rezoning that you're seeking. There's been a full introduction of natural medicine, use standards based on new state law. If we could mute the microphone for Amy, if we could.
Working on it.
Thanks. Minor stuff here, we've added some language about fences that are allowed in floodplains, the types of fences that are allowed, how technical specifications for fences must be provided before they can be approved. We clarified that drainage facilities can be allowed within dedicated open spaces, provided that they do meet the standards that are required for open spaces. We had references in the prior drafts to land disturbance permits, and we have better clarified the purpose of that type of permit. We have renamed it as a grading and tree disturbance permit, and we have given it its own permit description back in the administration section. And then finally, we have done some minor clarifications on the subdivision process, specifically to clarify that it's still a planning commission approval, but if there is a dedication required, then that particular dedication piece would go to council for your approval. So it's very targeted stuff that's been changed since the planning commission, and there is a track change document available with all that. Next slide.
I'll jump in, Matt, real quick and just mention that we're already aware of some additional editing, grammatical errors, especially that Councilwoman Havenford has pointed out. So we're going to work on that between now and the next hearing, but they're insubstantial. They're just spelling errors and such that we'll continue to catch along the way.
Oh, you mean there's spelling errors in a 3,000-page document?
Imagine that. Okay, go ahead, Matt.
We should be on the zoning up to districts page.
Yes, we are.
All right, so this is going back now, material that has been presented to y'all multiple times, but just for the record, we wanted to remind you about some of the key things in this document. We reviewed the overall district lineup to make sure that you have the full slate of districts that you need to reflect and implement that new future land use map that Bill talked about. That includes introducing some new districts, like mixed-use districts at different scales, like a mixed neighborhood district, a mixed downtown district. So to give you a full set of mixed-use districts that don't necessarily require a planned development process to have mixed use on the ground. We've also introduced a few other districts to accommodate specific types of uses or activities, like parks and open space, community facilities, and ag reserve. We have recharacterized some districts and renamed them to more appropriately reflect the uses that are allowed, like the R4 being converted into the MMP, manufactured and mobile home park. So a variety of changes to the districts. I would call those tweaks primarily, not overall restructuring. There's been some consolidation of the zoning overlay districts as well, which I'm going to show you on a couple of slides later. Next slide. So just to get into the district table, this is a little bit more specificity on how we changed the existing districts to new districts. The new code in front of you has the proposed districts on the right. Your current code has the existing districts on the left. And you can see it's, like I said, it's been primarily tweaking with some name changes. Residential districts did not change a lot. The mixed use district slate is generally new, but it's based in part on tools that you have in place now. You have a lot of C1 zoning, a lot of C2 zoning, and those have been carried forward as key elements of the MH district and the mixed use downtown district, for example. Industrial hasn't changed a whole lot. And then the three districts at the bottom are the same. Are new, I'm sorry. Next slide. I mentioned there was some consolidation of the overlay districts, and that's indicated here. Historic landmark is carried forward. The downtown historic district is carried forward. However, we didn't need to carry forward the highway overlays because we were able to use those, which are primarily design standards, to inform the new generally applicable non-residential design standards. So we kind of incorporated the core of those into some new tools that apply a little bit more broadly than just the highways. Sackets is carried forward. CBEO was not necessary to carry forward as an overlay district, but its purpose as a parking reduction tool has been carried forward. And PD has been carried forward in a slightly different way. It's not rezoning, and we'll talk about that later in the procedures part of this presentation. Next slide. There have been some substantive updates within those districts that we wanted to make sure and call your attention to. In some of the residential districts, R1, R2, MMP, and the mixed neighborhood, clarification on height. You can't have an
I'm sorry to
overall-
interrupt. I'm just noticing it's a little garbled. Like, I mean, it's loud, but it's not clear. And I know I forgot my hearing aids tonight, but I wonder if I don't think that's what it is.
No, it's like a bad microphone.
Yeah, I'm just,
It's really muffled.
Matt,
Hear me
is there
now.
any chance you can speak a little closer to your mic?
Don't you hear me?
Let me just see how is this now?
okay. I mean,
Testing,
we can
just
make
try a
do.
different
I'm just-
microphone.
Try again?
Keep going, and we can ask the folks in the box to turn it up a little bit as well.
It's not volume.
More the garble.
He's too
It's
close
garble.
to his microphone.
Try this here, testing.
Yeah, sounds crisper.
Okay, give it a shot.
Better?
I can still hear, it's just a lot of effort.
Yeah, it's hard, yeah.
Am I speaking too fast? Is that part of it?
I don't think so.
No, I think it's distant to the microphone is incorrect.
I'm gonna step in here really close. I don't want to scare you with the video. I'll try this. And just flag me down if it's still a problem. For the height restrictions, we've clarified that you can't be overall higher than 35 feet. But there is a step back requirement for any height of a building over 25 feet. And you can see that illustrated on the graphic on the page. In R1, we've added an allowance for up to 2 units per lot. And importantly, we've added this summary table. Let's go ahead and go to the next page of dimensional standards that give you an overview of all the different district standards in one spot. So you can compare, for example, lot sizes versus R1, R2, R3, all in one place. This is a really helpful tool, and it shows you, for example, in R2, what is the minimum lot size? What is the minimum lot size if inclusionary housing thresholds are met? That's why there's 2 numbers there. There are footnotes here that refer to footnotes on the page after this. Next slide. How's my volume, Bill? How's the clarity?
It seems better, right? Yeah.
Yes, a little better.
Thank you.
Give Dan some
Okay,
keep
sure. Each of the districts is given its own page presentation so that you have a one-stop shop of a purpose statement, a table of dimensional standards, and these are all carried forward from that summary table you just saw. And there's a graphic that shows you generally what development that meets those standards would look like. And that graphic is keyed to the standards in the table. Now, these are graphics from a prior version that had footnotes that helped provide a crosswalk to earlier drafts. In this new clean draft that you've got, there are no footnotes anywhere in the document. So we've taken those all out, and we've actually now been able to collapse all of these district presentations onto one page. Next slide. There are some changes to the dimensional standards in addition to the ones I mentioned. The rear setbacks now for simplification, we've clarified that there's a 10-foot rear setback that applies to both primary and accessory buildings in most districts. But if you can demonstrate that you've got adequate utility services in a smaller rear setback, and if you get approval by the utility, you can take that down to 5 foot in your rear. There have been some increases proposed to the allowable density, especially in R3 along the highway and in newly annexed areas. And then finally, this minimum density has been talked about a lot over the years, but it's a key tool to ensure efficiency in new development and to ensure that you don't have, individual developments that might come in and don't achieve what the code would allow and frustrate some of the efficiency goals of the future land use map. And so you can see on this excerpt from the table here that there are minimum density requirements for a number of the residential and mixed use districts. That's a new tool for Salida. It's not unusual around Colorado, around the country, but it's new for Salida. Next slide. This might be Finally, accessory dwelling units. Some of the changes here to dimensional standards have involved the side setbacks. We adjusted them to match the primary unit setbacks. Lost my slide there. And the parking standards have been amended as well, to ensure that the parking standards that are required for ADUs are consistent with what the state expects you to require to participate in their ADU grant program. With that, Bill, I will turn it back to you.
Great, thank you. And I'll just reiterate, we're giving you all this information so that it is very transparent and clear as to all the major changes going on here, and for all the members of the public and the audience, so that they can know about that as well. So I'll speak to some of the updates to the allowed uses and the review processes for those uses, which is the basis of section 16.3. We have expanded some of the uses, especially in the residential section, to include tiny houses and tiny homes, which have separate definitions per statute, as well as co-housing and cottage housing, a type of housing that we're seeing a little bit more of around the country and even here in Salida. We've updated the permit approval processes. Currently we have that major impact review, minor impact review, or administrative review series. That is going to be converting to either a major site plan review or a minor site plan review. Major site plan review will be conducted by Planning Commission with their ultimate decision in the vast majority of the cases. And minor site plan review will be a staff level decision, the administrative review. Conditional use permit review is carried forth just as it exists currently. We've also expanded the use-specific standards and added a lot more to that table. If you could go to the next slide, it'll show that table. This is just the first page of probably 12 pages of uses that are contemplated across the city, and this just talks about residential uses and use types. And the N signifies that it's not permitted. A P alone signifies that it's a use permitted by right. If it has a star attached to the P, that means it is a minor site plan review or administrative review. And then if it has an M, it's a major site plan review that would go in front of Planning Commission. And also C signifies conditional use. Next slide. So I'm going to go over some of the noteworthy development and design standard changes. This makes up section 16.4. By far, the change that has gotten the most attention and feedback throughout this entire process has to do with the new natural resources protections, and specifically the river and riparian setbacks and buffers. And I want to go into that with some level of detail so you all can understand it. Again, this is a new section, and it responds to feedback that we got from Planning Commission and City Council, as well as members of the public, through a variety of community surveys and other information. And it's around the importance of protecting the ecological and social characteristics of our two rivers that run through town, the Arkansas River and the South Ark River. And this speaks to a variety of things that we want to protect, including the habitat for the fish and other animals and birds and insects, ensuring shade to make sure that the water temperature remains reduced for a good breeding ground for the fish, protecting that bank stability and reducing erosion into the water, which can have a host of bad impacts on those waterways. And then, of course, the enjoyment of the river for the human beings that utilize it, both from an aesthetic perspective as well as an economic perspective, because, of course, our local economy is at least partly based off of the use of the river. So there are basically two separate levels of protection. There's the setbacks, and then there's the buffers. I'm going to talk about the primary setbacks first of all. These are the more restrictive regulations. These are the areas where only very, very limited amount of development would be allowed in those riparian corridors. The buffers, by contrast, are areas where development is allowed, but with added protections on the soil and riparian vegetation in general. The distances that I'll be showing you were established as an average as we analyzed those two waterways, the Arc and the South Arc, based off of the existing topography, conditions, tree canopy, and other characteristics. Next slide. What we have heard from the community is this is what they want to have protected, right? The beautiful views and vegetation along those two rivers that you see in these photos here. Today, under our current code, technically, these could all go away. We have no protections whatsoever in the code for these views, for this riparian vegetation, for the riverways themselves, outside of what would be part of the floodplain development permit, basically right along the riverbanks themselves, or right along the water itself, excuse me. Next slide. What we heard from the community is this is what they do not want to see more of right along the river, with all the development right up to the river's edge, or the full-on clearing of riparian vegetation and replacement with turf. So we took that into account in establishing these new regulations. Next slide. So back to the setback, the more restrictive area. The setback is 40 feet from the ordinary high water line of the Arkansas River, and that excludes the downtown zone because it's already fully developed out within the MD district. The setback along the South Ark River is 75 feet, and that excludes areas east of Highway 50 because they already have large swaths of riparian restrictions in place due to the planned developments and other permitting that they have already gone through. So we've excluded those areas. Setback area from all other small creeks, ditches, and wetlands is 15 feet, which corresponds with a lot of the statutory language that is out there. Again, all of these measurements are from the ordinary high water mark, which is not the highest place that the water goes, in mid-June, but rather that average high water mark that is generally quite visible to the naked eye. And you can see where that setback is. This is probably a pretty good image here of, it could be either the Arc or the South Arc circled in red where that setback would be. Next slide talks about some of the potential uses that could be within and some of the other limiting factors. So if it is a very steep slope, the setback can actually be measured along that slope as opposed to a horizontal direction. So if it's a minimum of 10 feet of rise over 30 feet of run, you can measure along the hypotenuse of the triangle, if you will, with that cross-section of the river. The intent is to leave at minimum 2,000 square feet of buildable area. And if the restrictions do not leave a minimum of 2,000 square feet of minimum buildable area, including other setbacks, then additional reductions of the setback are allowed, but only to 30-foot setback of the riparian setback. So with director discretion, we could say, yes, you can build that much closer to the river if you have less than 2,000 square feet of buildable area. There are limited uses allowed within the setback area, including patios and fire pits and walkways down to the river. You can get 200 square feet, which is maybe a 10 by 20 area for patios and fire pits, and 200 square feet for the walkway, which, if you've got a 5-foot walkway, 40 feet of it or whatever it may be. And on top of this, though, you would need to go through grading or tree disturbance permit process. That is new, as Matt had mentioned. And then if you are within the floodplain, any development on a lot that touches the floodplain will need to go through a floodplain development permit, just as it currently does. Next slide. So just a couple of examples, hard to see, but these are a couple of properties along the Arkansas River in the vicinity of Marvin Park and downtown, where they're set back, they're kind of up on that ledge, and they've got a walkway coming down to the river. These would be perfectly allowable. They have the appropriate setbacks from the river's edge, and so the code still would allow for it. Next slide. Now, the buffer area is, if you go from the edge of the setback inland, it extends an additional 60 feet from the edge of the Arkansas River setback, with the same exclusion for downtown. And then it extends an additional 75 feet from the edge of the South Ark River setback, again, with the same exclusion as well. Now, as I mentioned, development's allowed there, but there are additional tree and soil protections. You do need to go through that grading permit process, that tree disturbance permit process, if you're removing trees, pruning vegetation, et cetera. The intent there is just to try to retain as much vegetation as possible.
Quick, I just want to take a moment and see if anyone has questions. You're giving us a
Yep.
lot of information on this. I know we're getting hit with a lot of this. So does anyone have anything at this point, or you want to just keep going?
I have one.
What's it?
I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
So I was asked by a constituent, I don't have any riverfront property, so this is not from myself.
I don't either.
Yeah, so, it was, and you can change this question a little bit, but let me ask it, it was, if the city is going to come and take our property, such as making us, we already own our property, they're going to come and take our property and change our setbacks, from the river. We purchased riverfront property. How will we be compensated for that? Does that make sense, that question?
Well, I mean, but the only part of the question that doesn't make sense to me is, I mean, there's changes, potential changes in regulation. The land's not being taken, it's just how you use it.
Correct.
It's a distinction.
Nina, I'm gonna look to you to give the legal response, but in general, there's no taking of any land. It would be through this particular ordinance, the imposition of an additional regulation, just as we have all sorts of other regulations. This would be additional regulation with an additional setback and protections on it. But it builds into it reasonable use. You know, there's still the opportunity for reasonable use on the property. And Nina, do you have anything else to add to that?
I understand the comments that are made and, yeah, what you're saying. It's, a lot of times that's brought up, that argument about taking of property, but I do understand where it's coming from in this case, but I'm not gonna, the way the code's written is not illegal, but it's more of a policy decision, what I'm trying to say, than a legal one, yeah.
I'll just have them refer to that little answer. That's perfect. Yep.
We
that's
tried to build
perfect.
in a lot of
We're
still
taking land, though, maybe
opportunities for
divvy
use.
it out amongst ourselves, of course.
That's gonna work.
And then with the riparian zone, so the existing developments that are already there around these riparian zones, are there some that are exempt as in Two Rivers to some of this building, the new land use code?
Two Rivers is a unique case because when it was put together, they actually created their own conservation setbacks there. And it's largely built out along the river itself, along the South Ark River. And for that and other reasons, we opted to just exclude it from the requirements of this particular section.
But anything coming now would be under this new riparian zone, land use code?
Anything outside of that area. So,
Yeah.
if there was a vacant lot in Two Rivers along the river within the, the 60 feet or whatever it may be, this would not apply.
But anything.
But it would apply to all other areas along the Arkansas River and all other areas west of Two Rivers along the South Ark River.
That's all I had.
All right, thanks. Anything else before?
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure.
I do realize this is dense.
Yeah.
Dense stuff. It's 5 years. That's why it, took that long. There's a ton that goes into it. So.
I lost count of meetings.
But we want you to understand it, right? Like, we need to for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but please feel free to jump in and let us know if you have additional questions along the way. Let's go to if everybody's done with the riparian standards.
Are you gonna be discussing, the zone changes again, or?
We'll talk about that a little bit
Okay.
more in the next ordinance, but I will say one comment based off of what Matt was talking about with the translation of certain zone districts, our current zone districts to existing zone districts. In general, when you're going, especially when you're going from like C1, a lot of our community has C1 zoning right now, and that's going to either MN, which is mixed-use neighborhood, or MH, which is mixed-use highway. It's not getting any more restrictive. It's actually, in 99% of the cases, getting more permissive, more opportunities. And we've expanded those opportunities, and we've named it to correspond to that. You can do either residential or commercial uses, but so much of it stays exactly the same. And I heard some comments earlier this evening about the setbacks. Well, the setbacks in C1, front yard setback, is 10 feet currently. This front yard setback in MN, which those properties have, a couple of the properties that were referenced, the setback's 10 foot. It has not changed whatsoever. So we'll go over that in a little bit more detail.
Good to get ahead of it before Lewis and Glenn realizes that their funeral home got put to mixed-use neighborhood and freaked, it's just like, all right, it's fine, it's better, it's somehow better. Yeah.
It still allows for a lot out there. Okay, next slide, please.
Funeral home, right?
Additional development design standards. We clarified a lot of the general development standards and the thresholds. For instance, when parking or landscaping standards kick in, as far as existing development, trying to make that a lot more clear when folks have to upgrade those elements of their development, new or existing. Then another big change here in the code has to do with parks and open space. So currently we have a really convoluted language around the amount of acreage per residential unit that's being proposed. But as you all know, we get a lot of developments that don't have a certain number of residential units proposed. And so it's really hard to figure out what the requirement would be. And it ends up being this game back and forth between the developer and staff before we can ever bring it forward. And there's a lot of frustration that comes out of it. The way we have written it makes it a lot cleaner and more predictable. It is based a clean and clear percentage of the overall development area, of the overall parcel size. And that's 12.5%. And just as the current code would require, a developer, if the city chooses, would be required to dedicate that land and develop the park. Now, this is going to be based a lot off of the park development manual that Diesel has put together as to whether or not the property will be subject to dedication or subject to fees in lieu instead. And so we have also written in new fees in lieu if they're not dedicating and developing the land. Those fees in lieu are based off of market value to bring it more in line. Because currently, for better or for worse, the cost to a developer to dedicate and develop the land for a parkland is arguably more than if they had to pay those fees in lieu, which we're stuck at a relatively small level for quite some time. And so every time somebody wants to do the fees in lieu instead of building and, or dedicating and building a park, we're bringing that more in line with each other through this new code. Because the new fees in lieu are going to be based off of market value, which in all likelihood means that those fees are going to go up if it is indeed a fee in lieu. But that is how the vast majority of communities across the state do it when it's the best way for them to be able to create park space and to get those park spaces developed. Any questions about that?
sensible.
All right, next slide. Yep, and so I'll hand it over to Matt. He's going to go over some of the updates of the land use and development processes that make up section 16.8.
Thanks, Bill. This one's a shorter section to talk about. This implements a lot of the user-friendly ideas that we've talked about. You know, let's try to summarize all the procedures in one spot. We did that in this table on the right-hand side of this slide. This implements, this shows all the different procedures that are allowed in the new code. They're organized into group, you know, ordinance amendments like rezonings or code text amendments. We have development permits, site plans, conditional use approvals, et cetera. We have subdivisions, historic preservation procedures, and then finally, modifications and appeals. For each one of those, we've got a reference later in the code to the code section where that's described. We've got an indication of whether a pre-application conference is required. And then we've got a identifier for who makes the decision. Is it admin? Is it the director? Or is it the planning commission? Or is it city council? Then we've gone through and we've made a lot of changes to the procedures to implement some of the streamlining and procedural efficiency that we talked about back in the assessment report. For example, there's more decisions made at the director level. Under a major subdivision, for example, we've clarified that the preliminary plat is now a planning commission decision, but the final plat is a director decision. See that in the middle of the slide there. With the caveat that if there is public dedication required, then that piece of the approval will be forwarded onto the city council. But the planning commission generally is most in tune with planning and zoning issues and has the technical capability to approve preliminary plats that's authorized under state law. They do that quite a bit throughout Colorado. So that's the proposal here. Preliminary plat goes to planning commission, final plat goes to director, as long as it's consistent with the preliminary plat.
I
If
just
it's
want to
not,
ask,
it
I'm
needs
sorry,
to
I'm
go
sorry to
back.
interrupt.
Hold on, Matt.
I just had a quick question for everyone up here. In terms of the level of detail we're getting, I mean, I know from the public, we're getting specific concerns. You know, with what we're getting tonight, is this too much? You know.
It's a lot. I spent hours and hours and hours reading
Yeah.
the LUC.
I mean, I wonder if we can, because we still have the next one to go through, and if it's my ADHD that's kicking in, people tell me if they feel differently, but I wonder if we could speed this up a little bit.
Yeah, it's a hard balance, you know, between what is too much.
Like, I think it was
and
really important
what's
on
enough.
riparian because we've been getting a ton of that.
Yep.
But I'm not 100% sure, like on this as an example. But if people feel differently, I want to hear it.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, with this in particular, this topic, I know that Councilmember Critelli and I have discussed, you know, if we're giving the planning commission a lot more power than they had before, then the appointments need to be, maybe we just need to have a different process, I guess. And I don't know what that can look like, but I don't know. So, I mean, yeah, I find this interesting personally. So I'm here. I recognize it is 8 o'clock. But that's my opinion.
It's 15 years in the making. Yeah, and I agree. This means that we hold those appointments to planning and zoning to a higher scrutiny. There's a higher standard. There's more power involved. That means that, you know, you don't just, ideally anyways, you don't just sit in that seat until you feel like stepping off. It really does mean you vie for your position, just like any powerful body.
It's, I think to summarize this, it's implementing those recommendations and those goals that we talked about at the onset of this, trying to streamline things, take a lot of the decision out of city council and put it with planning commission when it has to do with land use, and take some of those off of planning commission and give it to staff, right? So hopefully those decisions are made quicker. The one caveat is when there is dedication of parks or right-of-way, then that is going to ultimately come to you all to approve in one form or another via resolution or an action item or whatever it might be. But you're specifically going to be focused on that piece of the development itself. So why don't we go to the next slide and we'll try to swing through these next few pretty quick. Go ahead, Matt, talk about the flow chart real
I
quick.
can't see the slide. Yeah, you guys have seen this. There's new flow charts for all the procedures. Next slide.
Oh, I just moved you.
Hold on one sec. Okay, go ahead.
The plan development one, I think it's important. We gave an update on this earlier, but we keep them as overlay districts, but now you have to clarify what the base district is so that you're not just starting with a blank slate. If you're coming in to propose a plan development, you can't just say, here's my proposal from scratch. You have to build it off some base underlying zoning and specify where you want to see changes, where you want to have more flexibility, and then specify what the public benefits are that you're going to give in exchange for that flexibility. So it's trying to revert the plan development back to its original idea, which was this is a negotiation. The city should get something in exchange for providing that flexibility. We have raised the minimum standards slightly for what can be proposed as a plan development. There's a 2-acre minimum size threshold. And again, you've got to propose those minimum public benefits. And this is important. PDs get amended all the time. And we've tried to simplify that distinction between the small stuff, which the director can approve, and a major amendment, which would need to go back through the original process.
And these stay with you all. The final decision on plan development will go to city council.
Rezoning.
Oh, joy.
Yep.
Next slide.
I'm celebrating.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just a nerd over here.
This is greasing the wheels. Minor modifications we've talked about. It's a variance light. You don't have to show hardship, but there is a tool to get minor deviations from certain numeric standards in the code, like number of trees required or fence height, just to help grease the wheels on unusual projects where maybe you want to preserve some historic stands of trees or something, or maybe there's just some unusual topography. But it's an intended tool to help just get people through without seeking a full-on variance.
Yep.
I think that's all the slides we have on procedures, Bill.
Yep. Well, one more regarding annexations, and this is really more of a policy issue, and it has to do with new language around dedication of water rights. It's an important change, obviously. Water is a huge issue. We currently have the water rights to develop quite easily within the municipal services area and a population that's considerably bigger than our current population. But we do need to make sure that we are set up for the long term. So what this would require is dedication of water rights for any properties in the future that are annexed in from outside the municipal services area. More specificity and rules around this are likely to be added to the code in the future. But this is something that will help set us up for success in the long term, making sure that we have the water available to service our population. Next slide. Inclusionary housing, we've made a lot of changes to this over the last several years, so you're all fairly familiar with it. It only went in 2018, but we have made a few more changes to it in the new code, not the least of which include the option for developers to go up an additional story in certain zone districts if they provide a minimum of 25% inclusionary housing units as part of those developments. So this would apply to all of the mixed-use center zone, which are those nodal zones that are out along Highway 50 in 3 separate areas. Certain portion of the downtown, mixed-use downtown area, primarily in the vicinity of Safeway and surrounding area. And then all of the mixed-use highway zone, they would be able to get an additional story. However, that additional story would need to be set back a minimum of 75 feet from the highway's edge. So additional requirements would be for dedicating land within the project and not building it, but you're giving it to the city, the housing authority, the housing trust. The number goes up to 1 out of 5 units would have to be inclusionary. If you're dedicating land off-site, the requirement would have to be 1 out of 4. And last but not least, we have included in there some fast-track language for projects that come in with a minimum of 50% affordable housing units. And this is a requirement of Prop 123. We're a Prop 123 community, and we had quite the incentive to shoehorn this into the land use code this year, because if we're able to do it, we get a nice little cash bonus out of the Prop 123 program. So we're kind of excited about making that happen.
Good.
Next slide. So we have set an effective date for this currently at December 22nd of this year. Since we're not going to be doing a moratorium, we figured that it would be best to extend the effective date. Normally it would be 30 days for an ordinance. This is approximately 75 from the October 7th hearing, and should allow staff enough time to do all the updates that we still need to do, but we're waiting on approval of the document. So everything with the administrative manual we have to put together, new application forms, new templates for staff reports, updating the website, updating fee schedules. There's a lot of work that has to happen. It does not stop with the approval of this document. So this will hopefully give us the time to actually be ready to run out of the gates as soon as it becomes effective. Next slide. 5 years is a long time. That's how old my kiddo was when we started this process in fall of 2019, and this was her at the county fair right after the watermelon eating contest. So just kind of brings it home how long we've been working on this thing. I just thought I'd share. And she's been a trooper all along the way. Next slide. Any questions that you all have outstanding? I think we got through it.
Yeah, the question I have is related to the, I'm trying to call them clients, whoever they are, the people here tonight. Complaining about their properties being changed from residential or from commercial to residential. I'm hearing you say that they can still do either one, but they clearly want to do both or neither, but they want the option.
Yeah, so the mixed-use neighborhood and mixed-use downtown, all the mixed use, I mean, that's what mixed use is. It allows us for a mix of uses, residential or commercial. There are some small differences, of course, between the uses that are allowed in, say, mixed-use neighborhood versus mixed-use downtown. And certainly when it comes to the, what's the word I'm looking for? How much you're allowed to build, on the entire site, the intensity of the use, that's what I was looking for. So, but like I was saying, going from C1, C1 does have a few uses that are allowed out on the highway, you see out on the highway, some almost semi-industrial uses, warehousing and all that would not be allowed outright in the MN. But we have also located those lots that are designated MN in places where that's not what the community wants to see. So, but you would still be able to do all sorts of commercial uses, especially retail in the MN district. And then you can still do all that and more out in the MH out along the highway. The MD is that's a different subject, and we'll get into that a little bit more when it comes to the zoning map.
Bill, I know for a fact that Mitch Thomas and Ross Elgin are zone C2 currently.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll get into that more
we'll talk in the
specifically.
forum.
That's C2, and that's different than the C1. So we had people speaking to a variety of different zoning changes. And I'll note that there's no requirement for us to notify each and every resident in the city.
Has that ever been done?
I don't know, but I can tell you it would cost tens of thousands of dollars to send out those envelopes to each and every person and to tell them exactly what they're changing to. That's not typical. What is typical is to notify in the paper, as we do for all other ordinances, to do our best on our website, through meetings, surveys, et cetera, to try to keep people apprised of the changes.
And it kind of reminds me of when we decided that it wasn't okay to have concrete and rebarb chopping people up in the river. I'm sure there was a lot of pushback about cleaning that up too.
I have a question. So my question was with the one slide back there, with the effective date. So if this is approved through the consent agenda tonight, well, it's off of the consent agenda, but if we approve
If
this.
you combine it back into the rest of it and approve it.
Correct. And we
Yep.
approve all of that stuff tonight. And then in a couple weeks, we have another one.
Mhm.
In a couple weeks, we have the last one, the third reading.
There'd be just two readings.
Just
So,
two.
Yeah, so the next reading on the 7th would be the public hearing and the second hearing. We don't intend on doing this presentation again. We'll probably quickly punch through these slides just as a reminder of what we did tonight.
Correct.
And obviously, like, if there are questions from the public about certain issues, certain sections, we're happy to provide answers to
Address
that.
that. And then why are you waiting a time period to make this effective? Just for your own sanity?
Capacity. No, it's capacity, really. I mean, normally if it was just 30 days, well, number one, we have some scheduled absences in October, so we're going to be down some staff after this gets approved, which is going to make it very challenging to get all our application forms done and everything else. I mean, there's hundreds of hours of work yet to do to get us going. So we need that couple of months to be able to get there. On that note, like, what this means though, is that in all likelihood, next year in 2026, this body and planning commission are going to be, and staff are going to be reviewing development applications under the current code and other development applications under the new code.
That was my next ask, is how are you going to transition to that? You're just going to, anything that was at a certain date put through before that date is under the old
Correct.
code?
Yep.
Okay.
Anything that is complete prior to December 22nd would be under the current code and current zoning map, unless they specifically request for us to wait until the new code,
Okay,
once that's effective.
my ask, thank you.
My only question, I guess, is, I mean, thank you for the hours and spent on getting this thing put together. I guess, could you go over, I guess, the thought process of going in and changing these zonings in the downtown areas, and what was the reason for?
We'll get into that in the next
but yeah,
one.
let's, yeah, because that's going to get onto that.
Yeah, that's very,
Love
very
to get
germane
through
to the
this
next
and
one,
get
so-
to that. Are we ready to get to that?
I do just have a comment really quick.
Okay.
Not a question.
Okay.
I just wanted to
There's
speak.
ADHD is really kicking in right now.
I what?
Yeah. ADHD is kicking in.
It is so, I just, like, after last night, now tonight, I was just like, ugh, but okay. My poker face has gone kaput.
A couple months.
I just wanted to speak to the riparian setbacks that were discussed, and yeah, I know that Councilmember Nacarado and I did take a walk with Tom Picorni, and so we did look at what the setbacks would be for the Little Arkansas or the South Arkansas, and you know that was why, like, knowing that they did a lot of that work for conservation already in order to build on that area, that is why there is that exclusionary.
Exclusion, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a little late. And something else that I know, and I know Councilmember Nacarado can really speak to this much better than I can, but for these setbacks, you know, they allow for our native plants that we have here to really take root and build a stronger bank for the river for not if, but when a flood does happen. And so you think about insurance policies, and so I just wanted to point that out. Like, there is a lot of thought that has gone into those setbacks, and I just wanted to say that quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We can move on to the zoning map. if you
Yes.
would like. Okay.
I'm making an executive decision.
No, we need a motion first.
Motion. Oh, because it was a.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Two
I'm
separate
sorry. Yeah, okay,
ordinances.
good. Whew, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 2025-17, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, repealing and replacing in its entirety Chapter 16 of the Salida Municipal Code entitled Land Use and Development Code, and adopting a restated Chapter 16 first reading and setting of a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, so a motion from Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Pappenfort. And where's the motion you're reading from?
I was just reading the title.
What?
It's on the screen now.
I think it's on page 245.
You know what, I'm just gonna go from this. A motion, let's see.
That's not what you said.
In ordinance, the city council, ordinance 2020, I move to approve ordinance 2025-17. In ordinance, the city council of the city of Salida, Colorado, repealing and replacing in its entirety Chapter 16 of the Salida Municipal Code entitled Land Use and Development Code, and adopting a restated Chapter 16. And to set a second reading and public hearing for October 7th, 2025. Further discussion? Please no. Go ahead.
Martin,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay, that takes us to ordinance 2025-18, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, approving a comprehensive rezone of the official zoning map of the City of Salida and adopting an updated zoning map. This will be to approve on first reading and set a second reading and public hearing for October 7th, 2025.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, and obviously this is the accompanying official zoning map. The land use code and the zoning map go hand in hand with each other. And we drafted this up. You can go to the next slide, please. This rezone was based off of a lot of that feedback that we received throughout the process. The future land use mapping process was key to creating these individual zone districts. Again, that process took almost a year. And so we were trying to really create a fair process based off of that FLUM. So the changes in here really reflect current uses and character to some degree, and especially the differentiation between the uses out on Highway 50 and the uses along Oak Street and First Street. Very different areas, different street profiles, different uses, et cetera. And so we have separated. All of those areas currently have C1 zoning, and now they've been spread out to include MH zoning along the highway primarily, and MN zoning along Oak Street and First Street. We've also created some new zone districts. We went over that a little bit, the additional mixed use districts, but we also didn't have an open space district or parks district. So we created that. We don't have an agricultural reserve district currently. It's something that we felt we should include for annexed areas that don't have specific development in mind just yet. Community facilities, that's another one very important for buildings such as this one that we're in right now. The creation of the mixed-use neighborhood district as a transition area between much more intense uses, i.e. out on the highway or potentially downtown, and the surrounding residential zone. So that MN functions as a transition zone. R3 areas get spread around different areas of town. And as Matt noted before, those are intended for higher levels of density. Most of the individually owned, we have a lot of mobile home lots that are individually owned, which is really very unique. There's not a ton of communities where folks own a little plot of land that their mobile home sits on. And we have a high percentage of those when it comes to the overall number of mobile homes. We are, through this mapping process, proposing to rezone those particular R4 lots to R3 that would allow a greater diversity of uses on those particular lots. Then there's those mixed-use center target areas, the nodal areas that I talked about out on the highway that respond specifically to the future land use map. And then last but not least, we currently have heavy industrial zoning right in the heart of downtown, right along the spur trail and then immediately across the river as discussed earlier this evening. We've moved that industrial zoning out of downtown and we anticipate potential future zoning to industrial in other areas at the outskirts of town, and the future land use map actually directs where those places should be. But I will note that non-heavy industrial, non-smeltering, for instance, non-mining type uses could be utilized in the MH zone and even in the MN zones. Next slide. Again, just noting that the zoning map generally aligns with the FLUM. It's a policy document, it's a guiding policy document, not necessarily a one-to-one in all cases, and we can get into more of that in a minute. Next slide. This just shows, this is the Conveyo Experience Builder that we used as a survey tool that people could go on the website. And that little line in the middle was like a slider tool, so you could see how things change from the current code to the new code. And then you could go zoom in on a particular parcel, your parcel or another one. And if you had any comments, you could click on that, put the comments directly in there. We got a fair number of comments through this particular tool, which was very handy during the process. Next slide. This is the zoning map that is in front of you this evening and out here in the audience. Next slide. I'm going to zoom in just for a second. This is out on Highway 50. So this shows the intersection between 50 and 291 or Oak Street. And what I want to point out is the diversity of zoning that's been applied to this area and the addition of a lot more R3 zoning in that particular area, which currently has R4 for all those individually owned lots with mobile homes on them. And then that transition zone between the deeper red, which is the MH, the mixed use highway, and the residential areas to the north. So it allows for a mix of uses, which could be commercial, could be residential, but to really transition from one to the next. Next slide. Pretty much the same thing on the west side of town with that transition from the red to the pink to the yellow to the R2 residential core of the community. And then we got a couple of those community facilities, which include the schools and the pool. Next slide. So there's been a fair amount of conversation around the zoning downtown. I think that's what you heard from this evening in public comments, and specifically the area, two areas, but specifically the area circled in red. The current zoning, and we do have that map back here. I'm gonna grab it real quick. The current zoning for downtown is actually a little bit, there's more C2 zoning than there is MD zoning proposed. We got some feedback in the middle of the process from some folks saying that their housing is much more like the residential neighborhoods and that they didn't want to be zoned MD, mixed use downtown. They face onto 4th Street, their neighbors are directly across, for instance, are residential, and they felt like their area immediately around them shouldn't have the same intensity of use as downtown. And so we took some of that feedback because, again, it had originally shown that whole area in the burgundy of MD. We took that feedback and created some determining factors and applied MN, that transition zone, to it so that there's a bit of a separation between the most intense use in town, which is your mixed use downtown, and the R2 residential zone to try to provide a little bit of a buffer. There have been a number of inquiries and requests since then from some of the folks that had MN applied to their lots. We were reminded that during the future land use mapping process that there was an amendment specifically to change that area actually all to the mixed use downtown. And that was like 2-3 years ago. So I kind of forgot that amendment got put on there. But it is shown in the future land use map for mixed use downtown. Again, we got feedback from folks, we responded to that feedback, we created that transitional area in there, and now some of those comments came in prior to the Planning Commission meeting, and Planning Commission opted to change the area between 4th Street, between G and H, and 4th Street in the alley. That was what was changed most recently. back to MD. Some of the folks you heard tonight were speaking basically across the street, across G Street, excuse me, who would like the same. They would like to have mixed-use downtown zoning. That is a question for you all to consider as to whether or not that is a change that we'd like to make. But we were trying to create that buffer with the mixed-use neighborhood around the MD zoning based off of a number of factors, including the location of the alley, the orientation of the houses to the various streets, the current uses and potential for those uses, on and on. The other public comments we got this evening had to do primarily with property that is just immediately to the east of Riverside Park. That is currently zoned C1, and in here, it translates over to mixed-use neighborhood. So again, mixed-use neighborhood, that particular property right adjacent to Riverside Park still has lots of commercial opportunities. All sorts of retail, restaurant uses, a lot of the types of uses that you see downtown. The setbacks are the same as they are today, with the front yard setback being 10, the side yard setbacks being 5. The one difference with that particular property and all the other properties, of course, that are in the downtown vicinity is that it's on the river, so that riparian setback does come into play.
But there's no impact on the commercial aspect. I guess there seems to be a lot of confusion and concern that there will no longer be commercial zoning specifically.
Mixed-use neighborhood is commercial zoning. It's also residential zoning. The greatest difference is there are a few things in C1, as I mentioned earlier, that would not necessarily be allowed through MN or has to go through a slightly more laborious process.
Like industrial.
Like light industrial uses that you might see, the warehouses or manufacturing plants or whatever else that you can get out on the highway. But our determination through the feedback that we got is that's not what the community wants to see downtown. Mm-hmm. So that's why the MN was applied in that particular area. I think the next slide is just Q&A, so happy to jump into that.
Very helpful.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, Lewis and Glenn being an actual business and then getting zoned MN is because it's basically the same.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying? Because it's 203 Sackett, it's about as downtown and businessy as you can get.
It's C1 currently.
Yeah.
It's not C2, so it's
Okay.
not that most intensive use. Again, it's a pretty much a one-to-one change with the exceptions of those few types of uses we just talked about.
Got it. Okay.
Does this give people the clarity I think they need going into 2 weeks from now?
Yeah.
So the people that came in tonight that were on G Street are talking about their change to MN neighborhood.
Go to that one
There's-
that shows the inset map, please.
They're still able to use their property the way they intended, right?
I mean,
Yeah, and then zoom over to the circled area.
Yeah, a little pink square
These
there.
were-
That's currently
These were the folks who
C2.
were talking to us
Yeah.
this evening primarily. I'm not sure if there were any others that came out
They're just,
in that
yeah.
area. They're the ones who would like to see it Burgundy, the mixed-use district, because there's no setbacks.
Mhm.
And there's no limit on density, residential density. I mean, it's obviously a lot more permissive than any other zoning district, frankly, with the exception of mixed-use center, which is out on the highway in those nodal areas.
So the reason they would like, when they bought their properties, it was Burgundy and they were able to go as far out on their property as they'd like to.
It's currently C2, which is
Yeah.
just like the heart
Max
of
density,
downtown.
okay.
Yes.
So
Which is the
that's
equivalent
why
of the MD.
that's why they're a little upset about the change, because when they bought their property and they seem like, now they feel like some property's being taken away, that they're usable property.
Some developability, yes, that is the concern. And the counter to that is we had a couple of people who it was shown as MD, And they didn't want that. They thought the area around them was much more residential in character and should stay that way and not have the commercial uses or the intensity of uses. So they requested that it become MN.
Yeah.
So we were trying to thread that needle
Yeah.
and create that
So, I mean,
transition.
I could say, it was his Ross that came in,
Ross
that owns the 3 from the corner up, and then Mitch
Yep.
there, right next to them. I mean, that's pretty much that whole square. There's a couple there on the alley and the thing here. I don't see, I mean, if a problem changing it back if we were to, I mean, for that little square there, if that whole square is, I mean, in agreement to, you know, to be able to, you know, use the property the way they purchased it, I guess.
Yeah, or we could do it with just those properties specifically as well.
Councilmember Stevens, is your property also in that area that we're looking at?
No, I'm right below the red line in the yellow, 415.
Okay.
So I'm over there in the was that R2?
Mhm.
Medium
And
density.
Bill, the MD zoning does allow for inclusionary housing, right, and extra density.
I'm sorry?
Yes, you can, well, there's no limit on density in the MD. What it would allow for in certain areas that are defined in the code is if you provided that minimum of 25% of the units as inclusionary housing, you get that extra story. So it could be as high as 4 stories.
Well, I say change the minimum number of properties so that the people who want a buffer can get somewhat of a buffer, you know? As far as compromising with, you know, residents.
Can you say that again, Councilmember Cook? For do what?
I'm saying, you know, to change the ones of the residents who have requested it.
Who've requested.
Because you had a special request to create a buffer zone.
Mhm.
So don't just change it all to burgundy.
Well,
Keep what you can pink.
it appears it's coming from a place of like retaining a value, like C2 has a value, and whereas the perception is MN is of lesser value, therefore depreciating the value of the property is what I'm gathering. That's the main, it's not like we're seeing like anything at Mitch's property that's going to resemble a commercial use, but it's for the value of that property being able to do that, I believe.
Oh, yeah, I'm
So
sure it is.
So I get that aspect of not depreciating that.
What was this 331, 341, 339, 347, 138, 132? What was that before this?
It's
on
currently
that one.
C2.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the equivalent of the burgundy.
And so the pink, we're changing, it's currently,
It's a change.
It's
It
a
is-
change
It's a
to
reduction
those.
in the overall intensity of the
why did we
allowable uses.
split that block? I see there's other blocks split too, but
That was the
what
buffer
are,
zone that you're.
the
It was-
buffer zone?
It was just that buffer zone, and we had this was all pink at one point.
Okay,
So it followed that line. That got changed by planning commission. And so that line got continued to places here. These are actually empty vacant lots.
okay,
So with a greater chance for redevelopability. So
okay.
So we had kept it as MD and kind of tried to continue it down the line that way, partly based off of the character and the orientation to the street of those particular houses. And there were a variety of factors that went into it. So it became a little bit of a jagged edge.
Right. And so, now I'm not proposing this, but I'm just asking the question of, if you wanted that little pink block to go back to burgundy, how does that work? I'm not proposing it, I'm just asking.
I'm looking to Nina.
Yeah, sorry, we're talking about something
I'm
else.
sorry.
About something else related to this,
On
but,
the map.
yeah.
Totally legitimate. We were talking about the map.
No, we'll bring it up next. Sorry.
See, we have an
What's
enthralled.
what's
We're
on
not like
TV?
chatting
What's on
about
TV
reality
later?
TV. We are talking about a specific property, and we'll bring up what we're talking about next. But can you ask the question? So that I just want to explain that. So what's the question again?
If council wanted to direct the change on the zoning of any lots for this matter, is it something that we would condition at the time of the public hearing, or is it something that could be directed now and we bring back at the public hearing?
Yeah, like any first readings, you can make an approve on first reading with the following amendments, so. And that would make it clearer for the public hearing. So either one.
And we would, if you made that change, we would change this map accordingly and bring it and submit that into the packet for 2 weeks from now.
Okay, I was just asking for those neighbors that came and
That's-
spoke.
Yes, yes.
So then someone make an amendment when we get to the motion.
And then we have another,
Yes.
what we were talking about.
Yes. Bill, can you talk about the golf course? It is currently on the future land use map identified as commercial. Tell me.
Let's go to the one that has the future land use map on it. Going up. Yep, right there. So it's actually shown as on here in the future land use map for parks and open space,
Oh, that's right.
with a portion of it shown as R2.
Right.
And
that
that
is
portion
because-
lines up with the area that's not developed, where there's no golf course use on it.
Okay.
That's what was adopted as part of this. And currently, the golf course actually currently has underlying zoning of R1. And so this shows it as R2 because you can't, the zoning map, we can't split it up until it's been subdivided. So we're looking at that R2 portion that was directed via the future land use map with the idea that maybe down the line, it could be subdivided, and then part of it would go to potentially park use, if that
Can we
was.
zone into, zoom in so we could see what you're talking about?
Yeah. So
I thought this was designated for the future pickleball complex. I just wanted to make sure you were awake back there.
They won't have any
Oh,
problem
he's
securing
awake.
that. It's the strongest lobby we have.
Okay, so just remember that these are designations, they're not zoning districts per se, but the future land use map was primarily shown for parks, open space, trails use in the area that currently has the golf course on it. But it looked at the potential for residential use in the other area outside of the golf course adjacent to the existing residential neighborhood. So go over to the proposed code or proposed zoning map.
Right.
It shows all of R2 with the idea that it could be subdivided in the future so that the area that has the golf course would be zoned parks, and the other area would remain R2 for residential use.
Thank you.
So, I mean, it doesn't change anything, right? Because it's not a park. Right now, it's a leased portion of city property for
With
the golf
commercial
course.
on it. There's commercial uses
It's
on
an
it, right?
accessory use to the primary use.
Yep, so.
Like clear as mud.
Yeah, clear as mud, Mississippi mud, yeah.
Because it's not open to the public.
Any other questions that I can muddy the waters on?
Or eloquently crafted motion.
I do think it's important that we did hear from those constituents tonight about, and like going back to like that circle of like G Street and forth.
Where is
Yeah, I mean, they were very clear in what they were desiring, and I know that or I guess staff has heard from some other individuals in the same area wanting to make sure it's, that it stays residential and isn't super commercial. I wish those people had come here tonight too.
And they didn't.
They didn't.
They did not.
Oh, I mean, we've got a motion, it'd be simple enough to make an amendment.
Who
if-
came? Which properties came? Do we know?
I believe it is, so Mitchell's property is here.
331?
Ross Elgin's properties are 339, 341, 347.
Yes.
And I think those are the only ones from that neighborhood.
And a representative 336, or no, not 3, that's you, right? Kathleen.
Oh, yeah.
Spoke in their favor.
Catherine, right?
Yeah.
She was there more in support.
Yeah, she was just supporting Mitch.
Yeah.
She's 320, I think, over across the street.
That's correct.
320.
Yeah, she's in the MD already.
But anyway, just thought I was- sorry.
Okay, so she was.
She was just, yeah.
And then, yeah.
So, yeah, so
The other speakers we already talked about.
if we wanted to
along
do
that
the
side.
motion, we would add an amendment to,
So what would happen is someone would make the original motion. We'd see if we got a second, and then in further conversation, someone would introduce the amendment.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 2025-18, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, approving a comprehensive rezone of the official zoning map of the City of Salida and adopting an updated zoning map, first reading and setting a public hearing for October 7th, 2025.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Catelli, seconded by Councilmember Papenfort. The motion is to approve ordinance 2025-18, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, approving a comprehensive rezone of the official zoning map of the City of Salida and adopting an updated zoning map. To approve on first reading and set a second reading and public hearing for October 7th, 2025. Further discussion?
Did we want to make an amendment?
If
I would
people
like
want
to, yeah, set the amendment
Yeah.
to reflect the change of properties 331, 341,
Wait, hold on.
339.
To reflect, sorry, right, go ahead, make them to reflect.
Reflect
Rezoning of property.
rezoning of properties 331, 341, 339, 347
G Street.
G Street to stay, I guess, as is in the
Yeah,
Okay.
to change to MD.
change to MD.
Okay,
That was their request.
MD zone, all right.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Stevens, seconded by Councilmember Papenfort. The motion is to make an amendment to reflect the rezoning on properties 331, 341, 339, 347, 138, 132, and then 332, 350, 348. Is that it, or all those other ones too?
No, we didn't talk about those.
Okay, those ones there, okay, got it, okay.
Just the
Of
whole
those
square, yeah.
properties. Okay, so we have that. And then further discussion? Okay, so what we're gonna do, we'll vote first on the proposed change, and then once that's done, we'll come back and make a motion on the original as amended. So,
Perfect.
okay?
Fontana,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Nacarado. Did she say yes?
Loser.
Nacarado? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Stevens,
Yes.
Papenfort,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
motion passed.
And that will bring us back to the original motion as amended. I don't have to give more detail than that, correct? Okay. Okay.
Stevens,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
Papenfort,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay, all right. You can sit down now. And that will bring us to council reports. Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Bill, and all of our community development department for all of this, and that is it for me tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Stevens.
Yeah, a few things. I guess I would, feel like I need to speak out on a situation that was brought to my attention through my 11-year-old child. I guess using this platform, hopefully that maybe this could get out to some of those people that are involved and doing their, exercising their right for free speech and, the right to protest. I'm all for both of those things, as long as it's done, in a peaceful manner and in a place that's appropriate. I'm hoping that this can maybe get out somebody that maybe participates in the protests that go up on 50 in Holman Avenue every Sunday, I think 12 to 1. If they're so, concerned about what's going on in our country, hopefully they're watching this tonight, and because they're also concerned about what goes on in their city that they live in. And so my son is a avid skateboarder. He goes up there almost every day after school, spends most of his time on the weekends, especially on a nice sunny Sunday. He goes up there and skates, and this Sunday he comes home and he tells me and his mom that there are people yelling at each other across the streets, across the highway, one side carrying AK-47s, yelling slurs like, "You sluts," "You baby killers." The other side, pushing back with their signs, their No King signs, and which is all fine, as long as it stays, away from our children. That's what's getting me the biggest part. They're there, families are there skating, younger children than mine up there skating, and all the attention from the skate park was turned on to this, this verbal violence, really. It's just, with everything that's going on in the country right now, I understand why people are up there, what people decide to do with their time is all well and good. Just, be better adults, be better, representatives of what you're protesting, and just pick a better spot, or, because, this could easily turn bad into violently. One side's heavily armed, ammunition in the weapons or not, that's intimidating. Man on a bullhorn yelling, slurs across the highway. It's just, what are you guys really doing up there? What's it really accomplishing with all the other stuff that's going on? So much, with the Evergreen school shooting right here in our own state. With, I just got an update that, 2 black men were found hanging by trees in southern Mississippi last night, I think it was. A violent public assassination, so it just, our town is full of love, and it's a great place to be. I just don't want to see this. I just want to bring some attention to it, because I don't want to see it, move to a little bit, I don't want to move past a peaceful protest. So please, if anybody's out there listening, please, take this into account and just be better people, and just be aware of your surroundings, because, I don't want my child to be up there skating and all of a sudden something horrific happened. So please just take, if anybody's out there listening, just step back a little bit from that. One more thing is, we're sitting up here, and I feel like I just need to kind of stick up for us a little bit. People are coming in with these plan developments and saying that, we're taking sides, and we're not listening. Well, it's just, we're up here, we do listen. We listen to both sides. That's our job. We take into account what both sides want and need. They're both, they both have the right to be heard. We have to do our due diligence. We have to do our process from both sides. They own their property. They spent their money, that they own their property. You own your property. They have the right to come in here and and tell us or ask us what they want to do with their properties. And just us listening to both sides doesn't mean we're taking sides. We're just doing what our process, is intended for. So I'm just kind of coming in here and telling us that we're taking sides and not listening is just I'm kind of getting, it's starting to rub the wrong way. Other than that, everything else is,
Thanks, appreciate it. Yeah, I would say that, people that are doing that clearly aren't educated on the process. If they were, they'd know we don't take sides. And, we're acting in an impartial, quasi-judicial, ex parte way. And, people are gonna believe what they're gonna believe, but that's just the way it's gonna be, unfortunately. Councilmember Fontana?
So everybody just take a deep breath. I would like to say thank you to the veterans who came last night to mend fences, to calm stuff down with the city. We are listening to them, and we will continue working on that relationship. So the air show this weekend, very well attended. It was wonderful. I know the city supports the airport, so I would like to say thank you to the staff and all the volunteers, lots and lots of volunteers out there. Went really well. They had a lot of cool things. So if you see any of the airport personnel, make sure you say thank you to them, because that is a big thing out there. I also attended the event at Elevate Her this last week at the steam plant. Elevate Her is a nonprofit in Chaffey County, one of many. If you're interested, they do have a great website. But I wanted to say the steam plant is looking really good. And I know that's obviously a city venue. And from what I saw, where I went, it looked very well run. The staff was great. The lights were great. Everybody's working very hard in that venue. Next, the golf course. When I went out and played this last weekend, absolutely beautiful. The staff is working very hard out there as well. So we haven't had an update since the last update I gave on the financials or anything like that, but it is open. There are still some tournaments coming up. You can play. There's a lot of openings right now. It's beautiful weather. Get out there and play. Next, I'm going to ask our treasurer to give our finance committee update from yesterday. Just give a quick.
He's going to do that in his report.
Right, on anything that we didn't talk about last night, on that. The last thing is public safety. I have seen a lot on Highway 50 because I am right there. The fire department has been responding to calls, as well as the police department. And I see a lot of people not moving over for our public safety. So when you see them coming, my ask, if anybody's listening, is to just slow down and move over for our public safety. There's a lot of people on the road still, and they are trying to do their job. So that's my ask, is just move over for our public safety as we should. Be courteous. That's all.
Okay, Councilmember Papenfort.
I want to thank staff and department heads in particular for getting us through a very difficult budget process. And I want to assure the staff that we are here for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Catelli.
I really quickly wanted to just, for the record, clear the air around Bones's comments earlier about the next last waltz. His ask was to extend the same rate that he had from previous years, which I think it made it sound like we had already adjusted those rates when we haven't. So does that mean then he's referring to a previous kind of handshake deal type of discount that he's referring, like from the last couple of years, or that's nothing like that I can actually point to as a rate, an actual rate?
That is correct. The rate that we have been using in 2025 for arts and culture activities is one that was adopted for 2023. So it's been an established fee schedule. I cannot speak to how the discounts were determined in previous years.
Sorry for the handshake comment then. But either way, okay, just to clear the air there, it's not like we've implemented these rates that he's now experiencing. Sounds like something based on a deal from the past. I was able to attend quasi-virtually last night. The service was such that I was confused about, what was going on, like why were the veterans still mad? But I was like, am I missing something? Does somebody have a sign? I did want to say, I do appreciate them coming in to council and being heard. And I felt like if we could have addressed their concerns sooner, we definitely would have. I was always under the impression that the issue with the parade was F Street and the rerouting, and we had a representative from the veterans community at those F Street discussions, and I had never heard about the burden of the fees. And if that had come up, I think we would have been able to address it sooner. And just to find out that the mayor had been personally paying that, I think, as nice as and generous as that is, it shouldn't have had to fall on you. I think we could have addressed that sooner, and I apologize to the veteran community for that. I thought one of the ideas last night of system development fees for public art was a great idea. I don't know when that can be discussed or if it gets shoehorned into land use, but I don't want to rock the boat there. But I thought that was a great idea. And as far as the budget presentation, thanks again, staff, for making the hard cuts. I know it isn't easy. There was one thing that Treasurer had said about working on austerity measures, measures for times, I guess, of extreme duress that we might be anticipating in the following year. I don't know if that's what council deems as an appropriate use of Treasurer's time. I don't really understand if that's, when you use the word austerity, I think of like, a mechanism in which to override the decision of this council for next year's budget. Sounds a little doji to me. So I just want to make sure that if that is what is being proposed, any of those discussions go through our city administrator. I think we haven't had another example on the land use map or the zoning map where where our city treasurer emailed directly our staff, and there is a system of which that applies to our treasurer as well as us, that we go through our city administrator. We don't go directly to staff to perform work. I think that that's just an important thing to keep in mind so we don't run into any snafus that chain of authority and that line of communication is not broken for any reason. Other than that, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move we extend the meeting
Oh, yeah.
to 9:15.
To 9:15.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Nacarado.
All right, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
Loud and clear.
Great. Well, since I only have 4 meetings left, I can't miss a chance to get up on my soapbox. And this actually kind of builds on Councilmember Catelli's comments a little bit. Just a message for this council, the future council, as well as the people, the constituents that come to see us at council. Serving on council really challenges us to step out of our operational comfort zones, where many of us are working in operations during our day jobs. And so it comes very naturally to speak to operations. Council challenges us to stretch into governance and policy thinking. And I think that's really important that we challenge ourselves to get there and not sit in the comfort of operations. Early on in my tenure on council, I would often say that curiosity is a sign of emotional intelligence. So it was very upsetting to me that people would come to council and be upset before they had even asked the questions or with false information. I think that we on council and our future council have to watch out for that as well. Please don't come upset before you've asked the questions that need to be asked. When we react emotionally to operations, we lose our focus, and our real responsibility is to stay at that policy level where we add the most value and set staff up for success. And that goes for the treasurer, that goes for council members, and that goes for the mayor as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, see, I just had a couple of things. I got a call tonight. I guess I'll direct this to legal because I didn't know where to go with it. I got a call from a veteran who has service animals and they're registered, and he, with one of our hotels, made a reservation and then they canceled and denied his request. Now, I understand there's a federal law around that where they can't do that, but is there anything at the local level? Apparently it was at the Gateway Hotel.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of in our city code, so,
I mean, can they deny service for someone with a service animal?
not that I know of, but, maybe we can look into, resources for local attorneys that could take that on, like not pro bono or something like that. I don't, or if there's any, disability groups that any of us know about, or that some of the county could help that person. I'm just brainstorming, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted
That doesn't sound kosher to me, but.
Yeah, I just wanted to put it out there, just because I was surprised to receive that call today. So that was the first thing. Went to the Boys and Girls Club Gala about a week or so ago. Actually, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, and just love everything that they do in this community. It was great to see fellow council members and our treasurer there as well. The only other thing I wanted to mention as we go deeper into the election season, and Christy and I have talked a little, Keller, sorry. So my old habits die hard. Just a little bit around, there seems to be a little bit of some whisper campaigns going on out there. And I think it's wonderful that we have elections with multiple people running after years where we didn't. And I would just say, let's just keep it on the issues. And that would just be my ask. So that things don't get contentious over the course of the next month. And that's all that I had. Anything from our attorney this evening?
No, not tonight.
Okay, and I know we have a treasurer's report.
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. July city sales tax collections increased by about $67,000 or 6.8% as compared to July of 2024. The city's portion of Chaffee County sales tax collections increased by about $48,000 or 13.3% increase over July of 2024. In total, sales tax receipts are 8.6% higher for July and 3.3% higher year to date. I'm also happy to report that we have a favorable general fund balance. I also would like to give a big thanks to all of staff, but especially the finance department staff for the creation of the proposed budget, which will be worked on as we move forward. I would also like to respond to Councilmember Fontana's comment. Yes, the Finance Committee, as it does, made recommendations to council on a few different things. One was specific to the reduction in healthcare benefits for council members. The Finance Committee supported that. Additionally, the Finance Committee worked closely with finance staff and recommended that we try to figure out a way to address the financial gap for the fireworks at the city, because we believe that's a large economic driver for the community. I would also like to take a second to address Councilmember Kelly's accusations. The Finance Committee provides recommendations that I've just pointed out to council, and then council takes action. So part of that is we pay a lot of attention, we dig deeper in the finance committee than council does to ensure that we're looking at leading indicators with regards to sales tax collection and also the budget of the city. So that's what my comments were pointed at during the budget discussion. Next, I would like to address the accusation that I've inappropriately generated emails. As a resident of Salida, I was impacted by the future land use map. As a resident, not a treasurer, I sent an email to city staff. I have every right to do that as a resident. And I communicated with city staff about that issue. I also attended the planning commission meeting and lobbied for appropriate zoning on my property, all of which I have every right to do. Additionally, when I conduct city business, I always do it from my city email, and I do follow the email protocol that has been laid out for us by the city administrator. She is included in all emails that I send to city staff. I want to make that very clear. And I would appreciate any council member that has any questions around my activities to approach me so that we can clear these things up and we can avoid inappropriate accusations in this public forum. That's the end of my comments.
Thank you. Anything from staff? No, thank you. Okay. Then all that remains would be a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks.
You throw them in here, bring them back, unless you want them. Record. A bunch of them. I keep